You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the October 30th, 2023 meeting of the LaPorte County Council. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Welcome to the LaPorte County Council regular meeting. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Is this a continuation?
No. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilman Rosenbaum,
Present.
Councilman Keel,
Present.
Councilman Novak,
Present.
Councilman Cunningham,
Present.
Councilman Mullenhour,
Present.
Councilman Karanka,
Present.
and Councilman Yagelski.
Present.
All seven are present. You have a quorum.
Okay. For the approval of the October 30, 2023 agenda, I'm going to announce the adjustments. There was a revised agenda because several things were changed. Do I need to go over from the original publicized one?
Do they have the same as?
The updated one.
Okay. So the only thing that we're doing is under approval of minutes, we're pulling off number 2 and 3.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Carries. Okay, we're moving on to approval of the regular county council meeting minutes from August 28, 2023.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, motion carries. Move on to regular county council meeting minutes, October 2nd, 2023.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Public comment, we open to the public. We do ask you to please be brief. And so therefore, it's your opportunity to come up and speak.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jim Jessup. I reside at 3263 West, 1350 South in Hanna Township. For the past year, I've been studying and researching information on township finances and budgeting. Now, before any of you say anything, I know, Jim, get a life. I get that already. So, most of my investigation has been around Hanna Township specifically, but I've realized that similar situations exist in many other townships in LaPorte County. Here are some of my observations and comments. Many townships duplicate the previous year's budget with no or minor changes, regardless of community needs or reevaluations. Some of the line items just keep building up, even though little was used the year before. This is especially true for township assistants. Many townships have hundreds of thousands of unused dollars in their coffers and don't invest those dollars in short-term, secure, interest-bearing accounts. Those savings are eroding each year because of inflation and higher costs. Tens of thousands of dollars could be gained with strategic investing. Very few townships have a capital cumulative plan that is required by statute. Similarly, townships often don't have a 1-year or 5-year written plan for their community. Good planning would avoid community surprises for a large project and make approval easier and more effective. Township boards often operate in near secrecy, with few meetings each year, poor public notice of meetings, and little communication with local citizens. On the other side of that, citizens have a responsibility to attend meetings, offer input and ideas, and communicate with board members. Many board members receive little training and have no knowledge of the finances, laws, and requirements of township boards. The bottom line is that many townships in LaPorte County have tons of money and the potential to be a powerful force for their citizens. I believe the county council can help that happen. When reviewing the budgets, I ask you to consider these questions. Number one, do you place accumulated funds in interest-bearing accounts? Number two, do you have a 1-year and 5-year written plan for your township and fire department funds? Number three, do you have the required accumulated capital improvement plan? Number four, do the trustee and board members get annual training? Number five, does the board communicate regularly with township citizens? And number six, do you do the annual budget with purposes in mind? I appreciate listening to that. I hope you consider that and help the townships through the budgeting process. And we're all better off if that happens, of course. I'll leave a copy of this with the president. Yes, you have a question?
Let's say, could you?
Yes, I have a copy.
Send us a copy or-
I will leave it here.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to make a comment? Carrie, I understood that you wanted to do a presentation for us.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, you've got it. Good deal. Excellent. So,
Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Carrie Garwood, and it's 6156 West 50 South, LaPorte.
Thank you, Carrie.
And I'm here on behalf of Bethany Church. We received unanimous approval from the commissioners last month to pursue a project for improving the dog park at the animal shelter. So this came to me as an idea, and again, some great deal of funding for it. Some donations to it will come from my brother's estate, who passed away. He'd adopted a couple dogs from the shelter, but they have some needs there anyway, and these dog parks are becoming more popular with small splash pad areas for dogs. We've built a splash pad at Bethany Church at the LaPark Playground that's much bigger, much grander scale than what this would be, but this would hopefully also maybe help with some existing problems that are going on at the shelter with some water issues. So we get a lot of volunteers and a lot of donated labor when we do stuff like this. A lot of contractors step up and help. And in doing that, I think we can hopefully fix some water line issues that are going on out there for them as well. So just good timing of it overall. You can click the next slide. None of the dog parks have this exciting amenity in our area, which is a little splash pad for dogs. That one's probably bigger than what we're thinking for the area that's out there. And as you can see, that's a much warmer climate. We wouldn't be running this thing year round. Our splash pad runs like Memorial Day through Labor Day at the church. And the next slide shows our little mascot dog. He's at the shelter now getting some vetting, and looks a lot like Hydrofido that we used for the logos. So I think he may go some places with us and hopefully get adopted somewhere in the meantime. But we've kind of looked at him and visited with him, and he seems like he would be great for doing this. So that would be our Hydrofido representative from the shelter. And then if you look at some of the amenities next, people love to sponsor things like benches in memory of someone or in honor of someone. The next slide shows a feature on the splash pad, these tennis balls. And then the next slide would show that's actually our park. We always do a dog days at LaPark at the end of the year. So that's some of the shelter reps' dogs out playing on our splash pad and enjoying it. And the one at the shelter would be just for pets, not children. So you wouldn't have that mix of things going on. But the concept and how it works is real similar. It's all fresh water. The dog one, again, much smaller. And the water drains off and it's just runoff. You're not recycling any water or putting any money into that. And then the next slide just shows some things through the IHCDA. They've already verbally approved a matching grant for us of $50,000. So if we raise 50, they give us 50. We use it towards that splash pad portion. Probably won't cost that whole amount, so we would use it towards some other features at the park as we get into it to improve what's going on there. Some water fountains that need replaced, things like that. And then the next slide just shows some different sponsorship levels. So the good thing about doing these community fundraisers is then everyone feels involved. So the people who are adopting pets or have adopted pets, love the shelter. You'll get everything from $25 donations to $25,000 donations from folks. So that just kind of shows it's a website. It's already ready to go. We just, for the state of Indiana, for the matching grant, would need the approval of the county that we're going to put this on this property. And let's say it raises $200,000. Whatever additional is raised would just go back into a fund for, the shelter to use towards maintenance or whatever else they wanted to. And then the last slide is, don't let the dogs down. So the commissioners kind of sent it back to you guys to just see if there were any maintenance concerns. And what I told them, just because we've had a splash pad now for a while, so we've gotten used to running one, we spend at the church about 10 grand on stuff every year for the park, the whole park. And it's much bigger. It's about 3 times the size of what this would be. So, and we still bring in money then from people who donate towards it of probably about half that. So I would think this animal shelter will do even better as far as people that are coming out with dogs making donations to it. So, and it's fairly maintenance free. We shut it down and that's about it. We open it and shut it down. That's, if there's maintenance, it's because a valve goes out or something, but not a lot of continual maintenance.
I'd like to recognize Councilman Yagelski with a question.
Recognize them?
Yes, we're recognizing you.
If you get this built, will you do it for the county council so we can have a little pad out there for us too?
Yes, right.
So I seen one picture was concrete and some
Right.
plumbing. Would there be some future ideas? In other words, if you get more donations, you could add another spigot or whatever.
Right.
How do you do that? Because you have concrete. How would you adapt to future growth?
Oh, so the pad itself, I think once you get that splash pad portion built with whatever features are on it, that's kind of it, unless you're adding another circular area, and then you would bring up new
Okay, I thought maybe you wouldn't
pipes and
another
things.
fire hydrant or something. If
Yeah,
somebody wanted it.
those are hard to add once you've got that existing concrete in there, but you could, if somebody was like, hey, I love this splash pad, let's make it bigger, you could probably just pour more concrete and you'd bring in new features onto that new.
So the water, will it be well water then?
No, this would be city water, and I've talked to the city. Jerry Jackson and the water department are both excited to help with this project. They said they'd do the same thing that they're doing with ours, which is we basically pay sprinkler water fees. So it's affordable.
So my last question is, I know that we get bombarded with this every year for I don't know how many years. We use tons and tons of salt because water's so bad.
Right, yeah.
And they'll tell you, this is LaPorte telling me the same story, so it's not, I'm just saying it.
Right.
What would be the difficulties with plug nozzles, all that kind of stuff, or the purity of the water because, and like over here, you wouldn't even believe how much salt that we have to use for our building, and we end up ruining our.
Yeah. We haven't had much problem with the one at the playground, and so it's running. The nozzles and all that stuff would be real similar. All the valves and stuff would be real similar, and it stays pretty clean. We literally, I think maybe once a year we'll have to go out and power wash it because a kid does something horrific,
Yeah.
like one
Okay.
child fell in a porta potty
Thank you.
and ran all over the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we'd like to recognize Councilman Keel.
Thank goodness you don't.
Do you have an approximate estimate of how much the annual maintenance cost or budgetary
That's
expense
what I
would be
was,
for us?
that's what I was saying, is that ours costs us about $10,000 a year, but we bring in about $5,000 a year in donations.
But it's 3 times as big
But it's about 3 times as big as this, so I can't imagine more than $5,000 a year on additional expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think you'll see some of that raised in the initial fundraising that can get set aside. So
So are you looking for approval from the council?
I need something, and then the county attorney has to give me a letter that just says, yes, we understand that this is being built on county property, and then I can get the go-ahead from the matching grant.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to, a motion to approve the concept of putting a splash pad or some feature at the animal shelter, and we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'd like to thank Carrie Garwood for all of the time and energy she has spent and the church has spent with their fundraising to date with the Red, White, and Brew events that benefit the county. And the benefit to our county from their efforts far exceeds what our expense to run this for a year would be.
I concur.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Earl.
She does a lot for the community, or so does the whole church.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else on public comment? Seeing none, hearing none, I close public comment. We open up to department head reports. Any department head that would like to speak?
I would whenever I get your chance.
Yes, Judge Alvisos.
Yes, I want to first inquire as to where the proposed raise for my JDAI coordinator and that, is it still on hold or where we are in the process? The other question that has come up has come from the auditor's office. We have never had any money in any of our court's budgets to pay juries. There is a jury fund that the county administers. We send the bills. It's been paid out of there forever. The auditor's office has determined that it hasn't been properly appropriated and budgeted every year. As far as the courts are concerned, that's not our problem. It's a bill that's obligated by the county to pay. They have a fund for it. There was a suggestion that somehow that we are clairvoyant, figure out just how many people are going to come, what their mileage are, find out how many days the trial might be ahead of time, even though we guess we're not always right, and somehow figure out how many trials will go in a given month and come in and ask for it to be appropriated every month by the council. It's ridiculous. In reality, the fund for jury pay is non-reverting. If you haven't been doing it this way for years and you want to do it correctly, the simple solution would be to appropriate the entire fund at the beginning of the year. Whatever is used, whatever is not reverts back into that fund for the following year. If we're short in that fund because we have raised, the state has raised juror pay, then sometime during the year we would have to think about coming in front of the council for an additional appropriation, which the council would have to approve because you cannot not pay the jurors. It's a cost of the government and it's required. But to ask each individual court on a month-by-month basis to guess how much they're going to need for jury pay is ridiculous. We have trials in circuit court set probably 80 a year. Maybe 15 of them go. Guessing which 15 will go in which months would be, like rolling craps at the craps table. So I don't know however you want to do this, but it's a fund that you've had, that you've controlled, and the courts have never had in their budget. To me, the way to do it correctly, if it needs to be appropriated, is for the council just to appropriate it at the beginning of every year during the budget process, because nothing but the jury pay and jury food and jury mileage can be paid from that. It's not discretionary, really, and anything that isn't spent just reverts back into that fund. That's my comments and my report, I guess.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Judge, is there an amount that you have in mind that would be a good, safe starting point for that, given that at some point we're going to have to make an appropriation to kick this thing off?
No, I wouldn't know that because I haven't had that fund. I have no idea. I know how much we spend per jury. It varies. It varies the amount we have every year. I don't know what all the other courts are. I don't think there's been any one person in the court system that's looked at it. We just have always submitted the bills to the auditor and it's been paid. If there's been something done wrong in the appropriation process, it was just because the council was never asked to appropriate it. And I guess my point is, you might as well appropriate the whole thing every year, because if we don't use it, it's going to go back in that fund. It doesn't come from general fund monies. It's generated from filing fees. And it doesn't go back in the general fund. And whatever isn't used, if we don't have enough jury trials, we'll just wind up back there. So,
My impression was that there was never anything appropriated to it to start with.
It seems to me that if you do anything other than that, you're just creating a lot of work for everybody, including the auditor and more importantly, you're going to be incurring the wrath of a bunch of citizens who came in and did their duty and are wondering 60 days later why they didn't get their minuscule pay checks from the county.
But Judge,
But you can do it however you want to do it.
I have a councilman also after.
Yeah.
I yield.
Beginning in July of this year, isn't there a surcharge on the CT and PL cases? Everyone that's filed, a portion of that money from the new filing fee is actually supposed to go into that fund from the clerk's office. So we really can't get a handle yet on how much that's going to cost on a yearly basis.
No, your cost would be to go back throughout the last 20 years to figure out how much
we spent in the last few years. I've never seen this line item.
But that still wouldn't be accurate because the state just increased for the first time in 40 years the amount of money the jurors get paid, from little to nothing to slightly next to nothing. But those filing fees were increased, and those funds are going into the juror fund in addition to the funds that always traditionally went into that fund. So filing fees have always gone into this fund. The fund has never been in any court budget. It's always been, I don't know if it's in the commissioner's budget, the council, or just the auditor just paid them. Somebody should appropriate it, and you should do it. And you should appropriate what's in there right now, because other money will come in, and hopefully the amount of monies that come in roughly approximate how much monies go out. We'll have to watch every year during the year to see if we're having more juries than what pay allows, and then we would have to supplement that with whatever general fund money or whatever money you guys want to supplement with. And there is no danger in not spending it because it just stays in that fund because it's a non-reverting fund. So my suggestion would be to appropriate what you have now for the pay of jurors, the juror pay per diem, mileage, and meals, and then the status quo of whenever there's a trial, the court sends the bill to the auditor's office, how much we pay, how much everybody should get paid, and the auditor can pay it, and it's been properly appropriated.
Mr. President.
Yes.
So how much is in the fund now?
Almost negative 80,000. So that's the reason why that fund came to our attention.
I haven't been here as long as some people down at the other end of the
I
business.
knew that was going to come up again.
However, I've never seen this during budget hearings.
Never.
Never.
Not 22 years.
It's never come up. So we've never seen a dollar amount. And when the judge says just appropriate what's in there, there's nothing in there to appropriate.
Nope, and it's not meant to be used in that way. So because it was negative 50,000, when I ran a report to see the schedule of balances by fund, then I started researching the ones that were negative. And what I found for this one, the jury pay fund, is it's actually a supplemental account. So the clerk deposits fees, like one of them is $6 for something, the one started in July that he was talking about. So it will never have very much in it. The way that it's supposed to be appropriated or budgeted through the years, and what other counties do, is the council has that budget in the court's budget. And then if there's money in the jury pay fund, the court uses that. Like, let's say there's $100 in there, they would take $100 from the fund, and then they would use their money for the rest.
So how was it funded in the past?
It's always been a negative at the end of the year, and nobody's done.
It's not asking if
what
it's
account
negative.
are you taking it out?
Sorry, Mr. Novak.
Sorry.
It's not that he's asking the question. How has it been funded in the past? Not the negative part.
No, it's just how that is. So it's never been funded.
Where does that check come from?
Paying it out of that fund.
No, it's always been funded.
What do you,
How do you take it out of a fund that has?
give me a fund number.
It is.
We just
it might not
changed it.
ever come-
Give me the old fund.
But it's in your packets because you're doing an appropriation for it today. So it's in your packets. The jury pay fund is, I sent a ledger about it.
So how do we put more money into that fund?
You can't.
How
You
did we
can't.
put in the past? Because somehow.
We did
the
it. That's what I'm saying. It was always negative every year.
So now it should be up to like $5 million because we've been doing it for 22 years. We have not put money into it. So we should be like $5 million in the hole right now.
Okay.
No.
More money comes out of it than goes into it. So
How does
it
it
isn't that
get,
way.
money get put into it?
Where do you see?
I just told you that from the fees from the clerk. So like $6 here and there, $75 here and there. That's all that goes in there. It is not enough to pay for anything,
Okay.
just supplement.
Now, at least we got the answer to the question.
That's what I said earlier, though, yes.
Judge, just what
I've
is-
been on the bench for 17 years,
Page 3.
and never once has any judge been told we're $50,000 in the hole.
No,
I
what's the
believe
council?
Lewinsky told us that we were close to negative,
Yeah.
but that's a fund that we've never had in our budgets, never had in our controls, and we just assumed the county was paying the bills in the right manner.
Well, apparently somebody was paying the bill.
We have been paying it, yeah, just not in the right manner, but, you know.
But it had to come from, you wrote a check from somewhere. So we're 22,
We're gonna have to take this and,
or not really, Mr. President. We wrote a check from somebody. Where did the check get written from?
The checking account, I mean,
The Magic's checking account? I'm not being facetious.
we've just paid it and it's.
Fund 2506 is what's on here.
it's inside the packet, in one of the supporting schedules.
Mr. Alavisos, I appreciate the comments you made. It's as confusing for us as it is for you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, monies have always gone in there.
Yes, sir.
And I guess for many, many years, it was enough to cover. But I think a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, Joey Winsky indicated that it was getting perilously close not to be enough to cover. So at that point, now this year there were increases in what kind of monies go in there, but there was also an increase on what we paid juries. So we don't know if it's going to be enough to cover in the future or not. My point is, if you appropriate that at least, the amount of money we generally get in every year, and you can extrapolate from the last few months how much that's going to be an increase in the following years. If you appropriate that, if you have the money in there and appropriate that every year, then the clerk's office could pay those bills the way we've normally been doing it. Jurors don't have to wait 60, 90 days to get their small pay. If it looks like there's not going to be enough to pay all the juries we have all year from the amount of monies we get in, then the county will have to appropriate from the general fund or whatever other fund they want, an additional appropriation
We'll just
to be
have to
able to
figure
pay.
out, we'll just have to figure out what that number is.
Mr. Yagowski?
So most
Right.
step,
You're just going to have to look back in the past and kind of take a guess and just monitor it.
we do that with a lot of funds, but, okay, so this fund money was going to a fund, 200/ whatever. It was going to a fund.
2506.
We didn't have enough money.
Whatever.
So we didn't have enough money, so we took this money out of somewhere else. So again, I think that this is a recent thing because I don't think it was going on for many, many, many years. It sounds like the fund's drying itself up naturally, by all means, but it doesn't matter. But at least,
Well, I think to the auditor's credit, though, he's indicating the fact that it wasn't appropriated correctly may have been going on for 22 years. I don't know, and I wouldn't know because I'm not privy to it because it's never been in our court's budget. So I don't know whether whoever did that or not.
If you don't mind.
How come
Sorry.
during our budget hearings, this account never came up?
Because it wasn't known at that point. We didn't do the schedule
How
of
do we
balances.
have an account that we don't know?
There's
270 some
you don't know.
Especially one of the-
Previous auditors knew about it.
Once we ran a schedule of balances by fund, which I shared with you guys the first time that I ever ran one, that's when I noticed that we had a lot of accounts that were negative, and we've been working on those since we found them. I have no idea what was done in the
That begs
past
the
before
question,
I
if you
came.
didn't know about the fund, where were the jurors getting their pay from?
Well, they've been getting it from that fund, so I didn't know it because I wasn't here. So when I started and I ran that report, that's when I noticed it. Our offices historically always paid out of it, even negative, because they say it's ordered by the judges. So they've been paying it.
So prior to our, I mean, it's on here, but prior to our, how are we gonna
It's on here.
It wouldn't be possible to budget out of jury fund, though. You would never use that to budget, because it doesn't get very many funds in it each year.
But we have to fund it somehow.
Correct. Because it's not in the court's budget, you're gonna have to decide where you want to pay
So
it. for
how do
next
we
year.
know, we don't have a number?
What do you mean you don't have a
We
number?
don't know how much to appropriate in it.
What you do, because it's on the agenda tonight for this year, for right now.
Is that for the whole year? That's to bring it out
No,
of
we were
the,
trying to get it.
To bring it out of the
it's even
hole.
more than that as of today.
So my
So we're
question-
going to have to guess a number for next
Right.
year and then watch it. I don't have a number because they don't know a number.
okay.
So short of going back and looking,
We'd have to go back in history and see what.
which we could.
Okay, which is what was suggested by the judge.
Out of an
Now,
account that we didn't even know we had.
Yeah.
Mr. Keel,
Ms. Graves, when we started this year, when we ended 2022, how much money, or was it a positive balance for the jury pay fund? Was it positive or
That
negative?
answer.
Probably negative? This is an
I
ongoing
do
fund.
believe it's ended negative for the last few years, yes.
Are we allowed to end funds with a negative balance at the end of the calendar year?
We are not even supposed to be paying out with a negative balance, which is something we're working on stopping.
So Councilman Yagelski's been asking me, how are we able to pay it out if it's negative? How is it technically possible? You just write a check and then it just
how
keeps
does-
going negative,
Just write
right?
a check, yeah.
But how does 2 years go by that it's negative and we don't
It's been more than 2 years, so I can't speak for, I
Let's
can't
just go with
answer
two-year-
that
Let's
for
just go
what
with the
people
two-year
have done.
philosophy, because nobody knows the number. If you knew the number, how many exact years it would be. So let's just go with
I can
2
look it up and tell you, but no, I don't know
How-
right now.
What magical checkbook does it come out of?
Excuse me, counsel.
yes.
Can we take this up when we get to the appropriation of this? This
Yes.
is still public comment.
No, this is still department head.
Department heads?
But how are
We can do it.
how are we gonna pass a budget when we don't have a number?
It's gonna be under department. We
It
can
can't
talk-
be budget, it's not budgeted. This is gonna be an additional appropriation.
For next year, next year's
But your
budget.
budget's done.
For next year, you're gonna have to do an additional appropriation, and then the auditors, you're supposed to pick a
2025.
random number. The auditor's office is gonna have to watch it, so when it gets to a certain amount, we ask for another appropriation. That's the
Until we
only way
can
to do it until it's in their budget.
Next year, you're actually gonna get more money in the fund because of those fees that are coming.
The new
with
fees.
PL.
Okay.
Even though it's costing more, because before you're only getting $5 or $6 on the criminal cases.
Last thing I want to ask is, there are other funds that have negative balances, right?
Ton, yes.
And those need to be fixed as well, correct?
Absolutely. There's quite a few of those on the agenda tonight,
You
absolutely.
don't, but if you don't
No,
know where
there's
the
a lot.
money is, we won't be able to fix it.
Right.
If you don't know who's paying for it, you can't fix a fund. I'm going,
Money has to be appropriated from funds for that fund, and then it would have to be claims adjustments are gonna have to be made.
magical checkbook though. There's no magical fund to pay these negative numbers. Somebody's been
No, there
paying
isn't a
negative
magical
numbers.
one. It'll have to be Riverboat or wherever you appropriate it from.
Somebody's been paying negative numbers from somewhere.
I don't know what you mean.
Judge, do you have anything else, or we're ready to move on?
No, I have to go to another Zoom, but I'll try to get back in if you have any questions regarding what actually gets paid out during a typical juror when you get to that point on the agenda. I'm hoping.
I'd rather do that, not public.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other department head that would like to speak?
Nobody wants to follow that,
Yeah,
just saying.
Okay, hearing none, move on to liaison reports. Mr. Cunningham, would you like to?
Pass.
Mr. Yagowski?
Yeah, real quick, I missed the commissioners' meeting. I'm sorry. I know that some of my council members were able to make it. Long story short, the mills were kind of messed up with the strike that was going on, so I've not been able to go to any meetings outside of work. So the statements that were made and I talked to the commissioners, the statements that were made from Purdue University, I think were false in some respect. You have this apple-orange type thing. If you reduce the amount of classes they're given full-time to, people stop going to Purdue. That's the case I was trying to make of it. It wasn't the case that we know that the numbers are going down. But as you reduce the four-year programs, and they have been, they're not giving back to our community, to LaPorte County. They're steering them towards Gary, and they're steering them towards their Purdue campus. A lot of money's being spent on Purdue campus. A lot, if anybody's been down there for the last. Hope everybody understands. I wasn't saying that. I was saying the point that with the reduction of four-year classes, four-year programs, our students are going bye-bye, and they're not supporting LaPorte County. I hope everybody understood that. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Keel?
This month I attended the One Region Luncheon, a Westville Town Council meeting, the Commissioners meeting, which P&W was at. a NERC executive board meeting, the Ignite the Region luncheon, and that Governor Holcomb spoke at, and the county RDC meeting. I also spoke to the leadership LaPorte County class when they stopped in La Crosse during their bus tour of the county. And I want to take a second to zoom in on one particular event I attended. Last Tuesday, Councilman Novak and I attended the Shared Ethics Advisory Commission's annual ethics summit. As far as I can tell, we were the only two people there from our county to attend.
There was one other,
There was one other?
Lee Morse.
Oh, that's right. He was a panelist. So 3. While there, I was specifically asked why LaPorte County doesn't have an appointee to the SEAC board, nor do we have any staff members trained to be ethics trainers. You may recall that I brought this up several months ago, and we voted 7-0 to encourage the commissioners to rectify this. So tonight I'll encourage them again. Please appoint someone to the SEAC board, someone dedicated to government ethics and willing to put in the time to make a difference. And please identify some employees who can become ethics trainers in their departments. And I think let's send a message to the public that we care about government ethics. And finally, as a public service announcement, property taxes are due November 13th, and we'd appreciate if you paid them because it kind of runs our budget.
Mr. Novak.
I'm gonna lay off that pay your tax thing, but attended the RDC, the FMEC, which Fairgrounds Management and Event Corporation, a planning commission meeting regarding the hand sanitizer that Adam and I have been kind of following up on, a workman's comp meeting, complex flood meetings, the meeting with Baker Tilly regarding our budget, MS4 meeting, shared ethics, as Justin mentioned, the Ignite event, and attended a meeting regarding the splash pad. So we had being the FMEC and on the Animal Control Board, we've seen a presentation on it before. So thank you.
Mr. Karanka.
I've met with a few of my liaison departments, specifically had a conversation with both voter registration and the clerk's office to talk about not spending out some of their accounts towards the end of the year and allowing them to revert back to the general fund if it doesn't affect them negatively in performance 2024, meaning anything that's got additional funds for supplies or other services that they don't need, don't use the spend it or lose it type of mentality. It does come back to the general, but it does give us the opportunity to be more flexible for 24. And I would encourage any of the rest of my councilmen to potentially do that with their other liaisons departments. Thank you.
Mr. Mullenhour.
I'll pass.
And I will just pass. I've attended some meetings and been in constant contact with a lot more people than I want to even admit, but we'll go with that.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
You had asked me to bring this up, so only because you had asked me. For the auditor's office, we do not have a December meeting. If by chance the president declares a emergency meeting, that's only for whatever that emergency is. It's not to ask the departments. It's going to your conversation. Spend it, we will. It's not for other departments. So if we happen to have an extra meeting, do not advertise for other departments to start putting money funds the request.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you also for saying that. What I was also going to bring up, we'll get, and I'll bring it up when we get to the budget. So let's go with that.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'd like to reclaim my time briefly.
Yes, sir.
To add to what Mr. Yagelski said, that by Purdue's own admission, they're running 70 degree programs in Hammond and 7 at Westville. I think you can see what's going to happen at Westville.
Perhaps we should ask them to come and give a presentation to the council.
I would like that. Okay.
Could the auditor's office draft some correspondence from us to that effect?
I can. I have contact with the president.
He'll do it.
I'll do it.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to correspondence, please.
We have no correspondence.
Okay, moving on to public hearing for economic revitalization area for KIP elevator. Mr. Radin, would you just give us a brief on it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The company Kingsbury Elevator, bear with me a second. They have requested consideration for a tax abatement. The total amount of funds that they're looking to invest in the county is about $2.9 million in a upgrade of facility and to allow them to do more business at that location. This is separate from the investment that Kingsbury has made in the track. and that amount is being used as match for the Ready Grant. So this is separate and above for that. Just some items that the council may be aware of, but just a refresher. There's 50 employees, or there's 55 employees at Kingsbury Elevator right now. Their wages are $2.4 million. With the new project, they would create 5 new jobs with an average wage of $60,000, which is also good. I will say this of Mr. Limborg and Kingsbury Elevator. They have been a consistent force in Kingsbury Park. They have stuck with and expended their own money related to rail, and they have, again, stepped up to be part of the matching grant that would occur. I'd recommend that the council consider a 10-year abatement for both. This is not a big expense for Mr. Limborg at this time. The approximate savings is a little bit north of $100,000, with about $90,000 coming to the county as a result of this. They've been a good corporate citizen, and they're out there in the industrial park. Here to answer any questions you might have about that.
Question, at the RDC meeting the other day, there was some discussion about the road right-of-way for Hupp Road, and that Kingsbury Elevator may have owned some of that. Did you get clarification if they're comfortable?
I did, and there's also part of the recommendation, a couple other facts I want to tell the council. At the redevelopment meeting, because this is in a TIF district, the redevelopment commission agreed to consent, and thanks Councilman Rosenbaum for the reminder about that. It's kind of nice to have two hats, redevelopment and council. The redevelopment commission unanimously approved that. We do not have any debt at the Kingsbury TIF. Secondarily, with conversation with the owner, he's indicated that he will convey property that we currently have public improvements on, and that's just a fancy way of saying Hupp Road. There were some outstanding parcels that were remainder when the county made an attempt previous to consolidate all those parcels where the improvements are. With the investment of the Ready Grant and Limborg at Kingsbury Elevators current investment and the connection, they're ready to make those donations to the county and convey them at no cost. Didn't seem to be a problem with Mr. Limborg. He made it very clear, and he is here if you want to ask him, that that's a necessity and part of the recommendation to the council for consideration for abatement. The other item, traditionally the council would, some places call it an extraction fee. I call it part of the law. There's a provision in the tax abatement statute that allows for a jurisdiction to collect up to 15%. What's been the practice here in LaPorte County is that we would take a look at the net present value of the benefit of the savings and divide it by 2. In this instance, I would urge the council to waive that fee. Those funds are, you can go take a look at kind of where Mr. Limborg's funds are going right now. Those are on the tracks that will connect his property to the bridge along Hupp Road, and it is an essential component in completing the loop in the park and connecting CN and CSX.
Thank you.
Mr. Yossi.
Well, it's been many, many years ago when this project first came to us. At the time, and I'm not against the project, but at the time we were asked the road, bridge, or the railroad, it was voted on by the group for the county to put their money towards the road, spur, and bridge. So that was the money that was at that time given.
Yes.
So this is just I say, this is a priority now. Is something else going to change in the future? Because that was not the priority when we first started this project. If you remember back then, that was what we.
So the fact that Mr. Limborg is improving his operations there is telling me a couple of things. One, he's counting on more train traffic from CSX, which is way at the other end of the park, and the original investment that was put forth by the council and the commissioners had to do with investing in the rail in the park. This is consistent with what he's doing out there, and his investment outside of his own property, after getting an agreement to do so by the redevelopment commission, further is further evidence of him understanding what we need to do. Now, on the other side of the bridge is JBC Rail's responsibility, and they're beginning to build that track to the bridge too. So once that is done, we're done. The system, the loop is completed.
Okay, and that amount divided by 2, what would that be roughly?
The
The fee.
the total,
The fee.
the fee for this abatement, it would be probably about $5,000.
So the problem I have with the council members saying that once we forgive one person in economic development, I think we run into it. If we want to reduce it, I would have no problem, but taking it down to 0, I would have an issue with. Because we're going to set precedents. I don't have a problem with what you come up with. I believe that's a good point, but we have to worry about the future and what the next person's going to ask, because it's nothing but a chess game.
Understood. I will point out that depending on who is exactly in my shoes at this point in time, they may or may not even have brought that to your attention.
But we always knew about the fee coming to us.
Sometimes
I always ask. Well, I've asked you.
You may have, but I've witnessed abatements approved and there was no fee associated with it. It's happened. So just clarifying. I don't know if it's intentional or not intentional.
And I have a problem with our economic development group, and if it was fee, because I bring it up.
It wasn't me. That's why I bring it up. No matter who asked, I pointed out, and I also point out as part of the application process, it's on the signature line. It indicates the code citing.
Okay, I'd also like to bring up the fact that once we now start running rail cars,
Yes.
we'll start receiving fees.
Correct.
And so that will be a permanent funding, future funding. And it's first to reimburse, and it's also been made, it's a 2-year commitment, I believe, to pay for the bridge.
Yes, Mr. Limburger is also on the hook for
3-year.
any fees related to the cost of the CSX Connect personally, or as a business, between the two. So he is currently on the hook for $250,000 to the county.
Well, if we put that down,
with
put that down as a fee, I would be okay with that. So if the fee would be in remnants of that fee, that would still be okay. That would be something that, Mr. President, that if it was at least stated that way. I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I just want to point out that Mr. Lindberg, if you've gone out there and spent a lot of time, and I've been on the RDC for quite a few years, and the things that he's doing out there, the county at one time made the initial investment on the rail.
We were asked to.
So to bring everybody up to speed, the county, to recoup our $6 million, we foreclosed on the rest of the rail. And so the county now owns all the rail in the park. But there's always this missing link, the CSX switch and the CN, the bridge over by Mr. Lindborg's place. So we got a ready grant, we're putting in the CSX switch. We got a ready grant, we're putting in the bridge. The bridge is already in place, and then Mr. Lindborg, at his cost, is running the rail from his facility in through the park to the bridge. And Mr. Carroll, at his expense, is running the rail up to that bridge from the other side. So there's significant investment out there that's being done by Mr. Lindborg and Mr. Carroll. So,
Mr. Galsky, as a general rule, I do not favor waiving the economic development fee. I do not.
I know you don't.
So in this instance, however, because this particular applicant is spending money outside of this project and as part of other projects, I mean, technically doesn't have to do anything, I guess would be my point. And that's the only reason I would bring that up for consideration.
And I would ask you guys to just use that as the fee, substitute as the fee. I'm okay with that. The money he's going to spend. That's fair.
I understand.
I know. Okay.
Basically saying waive the fee in lieu of the additional payments he's making.
That would create a precedent. You're spending other investment in other places. Therefore, the fee would be waived.
Okay, gentlemen, that'll come up in the next part. We're still in public hearing mode. Yeah. So I have to.
Not in the public.
We're not yet,
Mr. President.
Well then, I'd like to.
Pre-public.
Okay, now that we've gotten our explanations, I'd like to open it up to public hearing, so that anybody that is either in the audience or on Zoom that would like to discuss this, to please come forward. And this public hearing is specifically about this economic revitalization area, okay?
Project. Jason Fry, 983 Park Avenue. So a 2.9 million tax abatement Does that mean they don't have to pay 2.9 million in tax?
No, that's the investment.
They don't pay tax in 10 years, it's slowly phased in. Over 10 years, just on the improvements that he's going to make. Doesn't affect his taxes that he has now. It's just on the improvements that he's making. So they phase his taxes in on that $2.9 million investment.
And when everything's complete and the railways join the bridge, any rail car that goes over the bridge pays the county a fee.
That's a separate
fee.
Yeah.
Do you know what that fee is? Is that the NPV divided by 2?
$35 a car.
We won't.
What's the break-even point on $39 a car to pay back what was paid out to allow it to happen in the first place? Do we know?
Long time.
That's not, it's,
I don't know how many rail cars would be in there. Or, I mean, if you would want to take a holistic total investment.
We need you at a microphone, sorry.
Are you $6 million to recoup $6 million would take? I'm trying to do math.
171,000 rail cars.
There you go. Thank you.
but we wouldn't even need to recoup the 6 million since we now own all the rail.
You now have
So
that
it's
asset.
offset by that, so that it's not a $6 million figure. And the other thing is this is, all these improvements with the rail are being done to attract other businesses there. We had a meeting, Mr. Keelan, myself, and Mr. Reardon. There's a company that's looking to come out there, $700 million project. So, I mean, that's the goal, is to get more businesses out there, not to pay our bills with the rail cars running over, going click, click, and somebody sitting there counting them. It's the investment in the grounds and the economic return that we get with companies coming out there.
So the extra benefit is slightly further down the line when you have
Correct,
more businesses,
correct.
if you've got more
Right.
infrastructure to support
Right.
them.
To be clear, the matter of the rail cars is kind of a separate matter from this abatement. This is
Completely separate,
Completely
but-
separate matter.
but-
And Mr. Rudin, would you explain the way that the abatement works? It's not us foregoing revenue, it's us foregoing net assessed value.
Right.
This is a deduction that's available.
Yeah, it's a deduction available to, once approved by an authorizing body, and that would be the county council in this instance. So a base assessment is set. So Mr. Limborg is already paying tax on all the stuff he has out there. That doesn't go down. The county never loses any money. The county collects more money. So it's a bit of a misnomer when you talk about tax abatement approval. It's really not. It's a deduction of assessed valuation. So in this instance, think of it simply. Half is abated, half is not over the 10 years. And so the county gets half, he saves half. And in this instance, because of this particular transaction, he's investing other dollars on other parts of the project on our property, negating us from having to make those expenses to connect from where the public owns the easement to the bridge. Is that?
So the deduction that he gets the first year is equivalent to what percent of the total?
It's 100%. So it goes like
and
this.
at 10%.
100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Okay.
Then after 10 years, it's fully assessed and collected.
Mr. Yagowski.
Okay.
Real quick on your, sorry, no,
Mr. Fry.
Mr. Fry, real quick here. Normally, a lot of our projects are farmland or whatever. They're assessed usually at $1,000 a year to some number. They're very low numbers. So when you have the advantage of this is that if it's going to be a $10 million investment, you're able to take that number and incrementally pay for it. Normally, we would just receive $10,000, $1,000 a year for 10 years, but this way we're receiving more money. So up front, the very first year, of course, we lose, but by the 10th year, we're gained all that money back. So it like I said, after the 5-year mark, then we start getting our money back. But it's not used as a farmland or / whatever it is used at that time. So
One other point I'd like to make, and this also gets lost in this discussion. Nobody actually gets more money. It puts downward pressure on the tax rate. So just as an example, the tax rate in Washington Township is 1.8 and change. The maximum tax that you could tax a company like this is 3%. So from the taxation standpoint, that is an exceedingly low tax rate and very fair. If this was located in a different place, it could go up to 3%. So the taxes are fair and equitable. The taxes seem to be able to take care of that. In this particular investment, they're doing projects beyond this one. So this is not typical. Usually they're talking about an investment and what they're doing, not, oh yeah, we're doing this investment on our property. Oh, and we're spending a bunch of money on your property to connect this rail because one, we agreed to do it under a completely different transaction, and two, they know it's beneficial in the park.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and the interest that the public has in this is that if we were to not do this abatement, the resulting outcome would be that there would be more net assessed value in that taxing district, and thus
Maybe.
the tax rate, perhaps, if they did the project still,
Yeah.
assuming that. And the result of that would be that the tax rate would be lower in that taxing district. By us offering an abatement, there's less assessed value than there would be if they did the project and it wasn't abated.
Correct.
And thus the tax rate is potentially the same or higher.
Yes, but at a rate at 1.8,
it's negligible.
That's pretty low.
It's very
and that has zero impact. Well, I mean, since we're going to get into it for a minute, so it has zero impact on residents. None. It's 1% is the most you're going to pay. It's 2% for ag and 3% for businesses. Nowhere in LaPorte County are you anywhere at 3%. So
the cities.
Well, yeah, in the county, unincorporated. Sorry, the cities have their own challenges and tax rates accordingly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So it sounds like a good idea, and I don't know if you're Mr. Lindbergh, obviously he's trying to help, and that we got that future, but just from somebody who's sat in the audience on the last one and heard from Justin that we have a $2.8 million deficit, which we're trying to get down to zero. Does something like this help us get there quicker or slower?
I don't know if that might be Justin's, this is me
Disconnected.
Disconnected?
They're two different issues.
Right.
Things? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Plus, we don't all agree on that dollar amount that we're deficit, so.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, I close the public hearing.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
motion to read ordinance resolution number 2023-10A. Mr. DiMartino, Mr. DiMartino, are we doing two readings today or just by one?
It's resolution.
Okay, read by title only.
We have a motion and a second to read by title only. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
This is a resolution of the LaPorte County Council confirming portions of LaPorte County, Indiana, be designated as an economic revitalization area pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-12.1-1.1 et seek in reference to KIP elevator.
Mr. President, motion for resolution number 2023-10A to adopt as read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to be adopted as read. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. We move on to the second resolution, number 2023-10B.
Motion to read by title only?
We have a motion to read by title only.
Mr. President, can we get a
Yeah.
little explanation for
Yes, we will in just a second. I have this motion we're in the middle of, if you just let me finish
Yes, sir.
getting this motion. So we have a motion to read it by title only.
Second.
And we have a second. Is there any discussion first? We'll do this motion to read by title only, then we'll get the explanation, if you don't mind. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, so now, be kind, and
This is a
oh, no, we're gonna first,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll come back to it. I'm sorry, we just jumped the gun, and we were in the middle of it.
I'm going. You approved it? No, I'm just kidding. This is a resolution creating an economic revitalization area for a property at 3551 West, 800 South. This is a co-alliance project. Co-alliance is looking to spend $6.5 million making improvements to their facilities at this location. That would include a new and expanded fertilizer facility and their equipment with it. This is the first request from Co-alliance that in the county, and they have 60 jobs currently in the 35 jobs in the facility, but employ over 1,000 people in Indiana, which I was unaware of. So it's a big operation. The company would be at the next meeting, and they do have some renderings and drawings. I think they want to show you for the exciting new facility, but it's a big expense, as you can tell, for this type of operation. I think it's good to see the agricultural and agribusiness community actually coming to the council and requesting some assistance. There's a big agricultural operations in LaPorte County, so it's good to see that they're taking advantage of this and using this to make more investments. I think it's great.
Ms. Staples, please, by title only.
This is a resolution of the LaPorte County Council identifying and declaring portions of the LaPorte County, Indiana be designated as an economic revitalization area pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-12.1-1 at SEEK in reference to co-alliance.
Okay, we've had it read. What would the councilman like to do?
Mr. President, resolution number 2023-10B, adopt as read.
We have a motion to adopt as read.
Second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Hearing none, motion carries.
And that'll be a public hearing at our next meeting?
Okay, so please make note to put that on. Thank you. We move on to old business. To reconsider some things, we need a motion. Well, we had discussed last month an additional appropriation from ARP funds for the Lebesnick Center for $50,000. They're here just to give us a brief update, and then.
Mr. President, motion to take it off the table.
We have a motion to take it off the table.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, we're off the table. Now we can talk.
Okay. Hi, I'm Janet Block, and I'm Executive Director at Lebesnick Center for the Arts. And this is a board member for 6 years at the organization. So I hope you got, I sent us a letter following up. Thank you for hearing last, I think it was October 1st. And so I tried to explain in the letter any more illuminate anything else that might come up, but I'm happy to take questions. I'm still here requesting the funds.
I think one of my largest concerns is the uncertainties that we have around the ARP fund. We're given an estimate of what we have available to spend in our different funds, and the thing is that estimate doesn't include motions of support that this council may have made in the past that either implicitly or explicitly we were stating that this was going to use ARP funds. So question for Ms. Graves, are the motions of support included in that estimate of the ARP funds?
There are no motions of support that were designated for ARP since I've been on board, so no.
And what about prior to when you were on board?
Prior to when I was on board,
That's my responsibility, and I don't have an answer.
well, I looked it up today, but I looked it up today and I printed it, but I didn't make it here with that copy, but I believe there were one or two things maybe that included ARP, but not specifically for it.
And what's the current balance?
It's on the fund balance report, but 7 million.
Mr. President.
Some.
The ARP money was supposed to be, and that's what, I guess it's kind of confusing here all of a sudden this year, that these projects were not just supposed to come one by one. They were supposed to be through the commissioners, and the commissioners were supposed to present us, like, let's say here's the top 10 or whatever it was supposed to be. Because it has to come from the commissioners the way the money was. I don't know why it happened, but State Indiana said that. So we just, all of a sudden, this was kind of surprising because I didn't see any projects at the beginning of the year from anything that we were supposed to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the reason for it is because it was supposed to come from the commissioners in order to come out of the restricted ARP funds, but since all these funds came from lost revenues, or were moved over to lost revenues, it didn't necessarily have to become from one of theirs.
That changed it.
So that changed it. That changed on how it could come forward.
Oh, surprise. Okay. And the second question is, we asked this question last time. So what is Michigan City contributing to this fund, this project?
So Michigan City has already given us $30,000, and we are scheduled to get another check from them for 25
For the remainder of it.
from,
Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham, did you have a question?
My question was, not really a question, it's piggyback on what you just said, that the funds that are remaining are virtually general funds. We don't have any restrictions on them because they're not in the paying back what we lost. It's not lost revenue anymore, correct? In light of our current financial situation, I think we have to consider that very carefully, the way we spend any funds at this point in time. The Baker Tilly report says that by the end of operating, our operating percentage would be 1%, our operating balance by the end of 24. In 19, we were 27%.
They're referring to the general fund.
Correct. So my point is, we should look at these like they are general funds. Because we have a serious problem with our general fund. We all acknowledge that. You know, I think everybody here acknowledges that. If this is $7 million, I don't think we should be giving away like it's federal funds anymore. We should be giving serious consideration to how do we resolve our own issue with general fund. Thank you.
I mean, I want to say that I'm a supporter of the arts. I absolutely want you guys to be able to do the programming that you do. But with the knowledge that we potentially will end up with a negative balance in our general fund at the end of next year, are you guys in a financial situation that is worse than that?
yes, I think that we have suffered over the last, since COVID hit.
We did too.
Right, I mean, but you're asking, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, in 20, we weren't able to have our major fundraiser, which is our gala, in 2020 and 2021. In 2022, we had 100 less people attend our gala, which is, again, our major fundraiser. And then this year, we did significantly better, but we were still $15,000 down. And the thing is that I think a lot of you know in LaPorte County, I don't know that everybody knows how we're funded, but we are funded. I mean, I think this is important to tell you that we are funded by our memberships, our donations, our events. I think there's an assumption maybe that we have an endowment, and that is not the case. I mean, there's not a Lubeznik's endowment. We do so much for the community at our own expense. We're free 6 days a week. We go out to all these community centers. We never charge a school. We give scholarships away. And you might say, well, why do you do that if you have this, if you're having a problem monetizing things? And the reason is it's a leadership question. I feel like in a county, and certainly in Michigan City itself, with a 30% poverty rate, it is more important to me that children experience the arts for all the positive things that they bring to this community. I mean, there are so many studies done on, just a citizenship, lower crime rate. So I feel like, honestly, I've gone out of my way to serve the community for free because we are in a community where that is important, where equity is important. And so, I'm going to make a case for myself because I really do believe that we bring something. We are the only art center in LaPorte County, and we are a pull. I mean, we are a huge draw in this, from Chicago, from Indy. This summer, the exhibit we had brought in 6,000 people. Our festival brings in over 3,000 this year in 2 days. So I want you to think about the things that it enhances in the community.
If you're in a situation where you're going to run out of money in 2024 also, Are you comfortable sharing your guys' financials with us to further demonstrate those needs?
Sure.
You don't have to
Absolutely.
share those with me.
Well-
I know what LeBesnick Center's doing, and I'm familiar with it, so I
I
don't
mean,
need.
we were at a
financials.
deficit last year.
Right.
And so, I mean, you know,
I'd like to make a motion of $30,000 so that we match what Michigan City's already put up. That's my motion. Out of ARP.
We have a motion on the floor to pay for
You can still have questions after the.
$30,000.
I'll second the match.
We have
the city.
a second. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Sir, please.
In light of the fact that you're bringing in all these people from Chicago and Indianapolis, have you approached the Tourism Bureau for money?
the who? I'm sorry.
Tourism Bureau?
We give money,
Okay.
and I personally spend all year long raising money. I think out of all of the board members, Janet can tell you, I've raised the most money.
I also feel like we shouldn't be penalized for trying to be good fundraisers. I mean, that is how we serve. Like, that is what we do. So, you know, if we'd had him, and I'll also tell you that we were lucky enough to get PPP loans, which were forgiven, but I think that, I guess like what I really feel is like we have suffered. I mean, we are running our place right now with 2 full-time people. You know, it's like what we're doing in the community. I'm just telling you the fact that I am very lean. I run and I am happy to share the financials at any point with you. They are public as well. Right. But we do get support from foundations, and I think it's because we make a good case for what we do. I will share we didn't get a Unity Foundation grant this year, which surprised me, and we didn't get enrichment funds. But we do have we got Parker Foundation. I mean, I listed in the letter some of the Horizon Cares. I just feel like I don't feel bad asking. I really don't, because I really feel like what we do is significant, and I do think the arts are underappreciated, and I think some of the projects we've brought. I'll give you an example, because in the city of LaPorte, not just in Michigan City, we just did a mural and the Healthcare Foundation funded the artist. But all the other meetings and the staff that I brought with and the liaison, the administrative work, the signage that we're going to do, all of that was paid out of pocket from our funds. And that is a leadership thing that I believe that this county will thrive through some of these art initiatives. And my decision to spend money our own, meaning it wasn't designated through a grant or whatever, to improve the quality of life for people, I think is significant. I really do.
Okay. Is there any other comments on the council? Hearing none, I'd like to bring it to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye for $30,000. Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Okay, 5 ayes, 2 nays.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to take the Fort County Council E911 off the table.
You got your mic?
Off the table.
We have a motion to take and a second to take LaPorte County E911 off the table to discuss, request additional appropriation from Lit Public Safety or Riverboat or Wind Tax or ARP for maintenance agreement for the 800 megahertz equipment.
Motion to approve out of Lit Public Safety.
We have a motion to approve out of Lit Public Safety. Do I have a second?
Balance.
Any question?
I'm waiting for a second.
Oh, I think you had a second, I'm sorry.
No, I don't
I
yet.
apologize, Mr. President. I'll second for,
Okay, we have a second. Now, any comments?
yeah,
Questions?
can somebody remind me, why did we table this one? I'm sorry, I forgot.
It was not publicized in the right
It
account.
wasn't tabled, it was just.
It wasn't, it was held over.
I know, but this as quick as it says, these are all tabled, these 3, A, B, and C, so I'm just asking a question.
Doesn't matter, well,
It was,
I don't know that it was tabled, but it's
it was
okay, take it
tabled,
off.
it was tabled because I did not put lit public safety.
That
in
doesn't,
the
that doesn't table nothing. That just means that they have to come back.
So-
Right,
That-
so
that-
it was held
Just so
over.
we know
So it
that.
was just really held over, okay.
Okay,
So, because we wanted to take it out of public safety lit.
I get it. Thank you.
All right.
That's
Yeah,
not-
if you remember correctly, it was put out.
But I just want to, thank you.
Okay, and hearing no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Sorry. Hey, I'm sorry. I messed up.
Okay, so we're 5 and 2 again. So LaPorte County Sheriff's Maintenance Garage, a similar situation. Thank you very much. Requesting additional appropriation from Lit Public Safety or Riverboat or Wind Tax or ARP for maintenance and equipment, $30,000. This was also, it was publicized out of, it did not have public safety, it was out of the Lit Economic Development Fund in error last month, and so that's why it was brought forward now. And what would the council like to do?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
No.
Second.
And we have a second.
Safety, correct?
We only got one.
Well, no, we have choices of all of them, but it would,
That's the whole purpose of
of
it.
this was to do out of Lit Public Safety. Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, just quick discussion. Through the end of the year, we're sitting in a balance of $320,000 on lit public safety. That includes all guaranteed deposits through the end of the year. If we look at wind tax, we're talking 727. And if we look at Riverboat, where are we? Riverboat's sitting at 2.3 million.
Bear in mind that we're going to transfer about 800,000 out of Riverboat over to the rainy day fund later in the meeting. But yes.
And lit public safety is the most restrictive use. We recommend the lit public safety respectfully.
All right. That's all my comments.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
5-2 again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to new business. In the past, consider approval of council's authorization to hire replacement positions for in the LaPorte County Health Department public health nurse,
Mr. President, the motion for that one, also in the Highway Department.
and also for the Highway Department. And there are 2 positions in the Highway Department due to 2 people retiring. Okay, so we have a motion of support for this, and
Second.
we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Transfer of old Indiana State Prison Cemetery to LaPorte County.
Mr. President. So DeDalt Corporation on US 20 by Hitchcock, we had the old prison, Indiana Prison Cemetery. It was in disrepair there, and they've conveyed it over to the commissioners. The commissioners approved the resolution. We haven't recorded the deed yet because the commission was sort of wanted you all to be in the loop, because at some point in time, they're going to come back for a little more money for maintenance for the cemetery.
I think there's some questions here.
Well, first, if you wouldn't be so kind as to state your name.
Certainly. My name is Sue Webster. I'm the director of the department head of the Pioneer Cemetery Commission.
Thank you. Is there some comment that you'd like to add first before we talk?
Explain what makes a cemetery a pioneer cemetery.
Okay. A pioneer cemetery needs to be established prior to 1864, and we have just a little over 30 of them in LaPorte County now. And now we'll be getting a new one, the Old Prison Pioneer Cemetery. Our board secretary, Pat Harris, is a wealth of information. She has been researching this cemetery for a number of years. This prison, the Old Prison Pioneer Cemetery, was established right around 1864. And at one point it had over 100 graves in it. It no longer has any gravestones in the boundaries of the cemetery, and the boundaries of the cemetery that we have now is just a very small piece of what it used to be. It used to be in that corner lot, or triangle lot, used to be in the prison grounds, but now it's out of it. there are no longer any gravestones in the Pioneer Cemetery. However, the board is going to be going out there to the property and walking around it to make sure there's nothing that will be obstructing, say, maintenance contractor that we would get. It appears that there will only be mowing involved, and some of our costs would be that we get a Pioneer Cemetery sign for each of our Pioneer cemeteries, which has been costing $100 for each sign, and it just says the name of the cemetery and the year that it was established. But we will be putting up a history sign at this one as well. Some of our cemeteries have history signs already, and we're working on the history of the cemeteries to eventually have history signs on all of our cemeteries. Those cost around $300. Since there are just a few trees at the very end of the property, we won't have any costs for, a lot of our budget goes towards maintenance when trees fall, and sometimes they fall on the gravestones, and then we have to get the gravestones repaired. That's costly, but here, of course, we won't have anything like that happening. We're still in the very early stages of this, so we don't know exactly how much a caretaker will charge, but we believe it will probably be around $600. I don't know for mowing if there would be any much more yearly cemetery maintenance charge for that.
Okay, Ms. Novak?
So with the cemetery that's next to it, the newer cemetery, what is the state gonna do with that one?
We don't know yet.
So why doesn't the state just, since there's a cemetery right next to it, why don't they just?
I can answer that. They want nothing to do with it. This was on private land. It's.
So what are they gonna do with the other one?
Yeah, well, I'm not. That's above my pay grade.
Mr. Yagowski?
I yield. This has nothing to do with, I think you're doing a great job. It has nothing to do with you, but it has to do with economics. The Indiana State Prison all of a sudden one day says, and this has happened, we announced we're closing the prison. No other thing happened because last year they were going to put money into it. I have been just to a tour this last year before they announced, and they have not been putting money in the prison for quite some time. Their money's been steered towards Westfield, which is fine.
Michael.
Sorry, thank you. Here's the problem. It's a checkerboard approach. Who knows what they're going to do with the property back there, what they're going to do with the set amount. We're in the middle of a property that we can't access. One, if we're only talking maintenance and cutting grass, they will still have, they have prisoners that can go there.
Hold on 1 second. Mr. Yagowski, they don't own this property. Indiana State Prison the Indiana prison system no longer owns it. Somehow it got deeded to a private corporation many years ago. That's the issue.
Who is this group?
DeDalt Corporation, Delta Faucets. They're on
the cemetery only, or the whole?
Not the whole cemetery. Just this little sliver is on this private corporation's property. That's the issue.
Okay, and Martino, would this be a fair question? That if we just let Delta take care of it, and they don't mow it, the city is gonna then mow it and lean against their property, the city will eventually get it.
Yes.
Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Could be.
So if the law says 1860, I know that that the present cemetery right now has people before 1860, and they have right now at Greenwood.
Right.
So does this mean now, because it's the same question, is that our cemetery, the 1860 cemetery, is that ours too?
It's in Greenwood Cemetery?
Yes.
No, it isn't.
Then why would this one be? I know you don't know this is a legal question. I think this needs to be investigated by attorneys. I think this was a bad decision. I think it's a checkerboard approach. We have no idea what the prison's going to do. the prisoners they've been cutting that grass. I mean, I drive by it every day. I mean,
But just so you know, the commission's already done it.
I think it's wrong.
Okay,
But that's what Mark's allowed to still say. I think this is a wrong
But if
decision.
they haven't recorded the deed.
Absolutely.
I did the deed. The deed's
Okay.
not been recorded yet.
So here's my question. When Michigan City took over the boulevard from the state, it came with $4.5 million. When Regional Sewer took over the sewer out at the what do you call those things along the highway that you stop? Rest stops. They took over that. It came with a large sum of money. How come the state isn't saying, we want Pioneer Cemetery to take over this? Here's some money to do
The
this.
state's already discarded it. It's the state's had nothing to do with it.
Well, they haven't. So it's
Seems like
not
the state has to be the one to fix that.
So maybe
It's totally ridiculous.
I just
Maybe
hope
this
it's not
corporation
anybody in
would.
your family. It's
maybe
great
Delta
who's there.
Faucet. Maybe Delta Faucet would like to.
No, Mr. DiMartino, it's not people's family. Most of these people were not from Michigan City.
Exactly.
So that I don't want to hear let's hear the cry, my tear in my.
But that's part of public. I could care less what y'all. But this is part of public service. This is part of being public.
I disagree.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And so I think this is a checkerboard approach. This makes no sense whatsoever. It's not, again, has nothing to do with you. I like to have this thing checked out to commissioners and have the attorney check what we can do to get the people to pay for taking the maintenance. It doesn't just automatically come to the county.
Mr. President,
Apparently
Yes, sir.
it did.
Wait, maybe Mr. Cunningham?
hasn't come to the county, hasn't recorded the deed, correct?
Signed deed. It's not been recorded.
Exactly. So the county hasn't taken possession, the deed hasn't been recorded. So the question is this: can the council, well, I want to just make a motion. I'll make a motion that the council pass this back to the commission, that we just let this go back to Delta.
Yes, sir. I second that. Absolutely.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is it discussion?
I would put forth an amendment to, rather than us let it go back to Delta, it is a public cemetery. There are people that are buried in there, real people, even if they were inmates. I take the position that the state should be responsible for maintaining it because they are the ones.
Don't even own it now.
They may not own it, but they should have. They shouldn't have ever let it gone to another company. That's just ridiculous.
That's way before.
And I know that that's something that would be difficult to fix, but perhaps we can table this instead for a month, reach out to the Indiana State Prison and see where they are on this. Would they take it back over and fix the situation?
But how do you reconcile this with the actual? How do you all reconcile this with the actual charge that the Pioneer Cemetery Commission has?
I'd like to find out how Delta was able to acquire it, because it's a cemetery. Example, Michigan City, back in the day, you were allowed to do stuff. Where Elsham School was built, there was a cemetery there. I don't see us maintaining that because there was people, they didn't get out of it. They just kind of said, you dig up X amount of dirt and then you move it to dirt, it legally makes that cemetery move. I know it's an old rule because they couldn't fix it. They can't just pick up the whole area. So Elsham's built on that cemetery. Are we responsible for that because of that? This could be a stupid thing. This checkerboard approach is a wrong approach to take. There's no access road to this.
Who has control over the other cemetery? You
It's a
don't know.
bad decision.
That's what I was gonna ask.
I do not. All I was asked to do was prepare the deed a while back.
The state won't, are they gonna maintain that, do you think, or?
The state has
The other
maintained
cemetery.
it. They have not maintained
The
it.
Pioneer Cemetery, the other cemetery
The other
next to it.
cemetery.
Yeah, I have no idea. State doesn't talk to me.
They weren't on that property. They've been maintaining it, yes. Nobody comes on that property. I have to find out this little sliver of Delta supposedly owns. Can we see a map sent to us, Mr. DiMartino? Or give me somewhere I can look up that map? Okay, just look up LaPorte and what the name of again.
Does Beacon show ownership of that?
What year it became?
It does, yes. The deeds are a mess. The property history is a mess.
So I would make a motion to amend. Instead, we table it and put together some people to.
It's up to him. It's up to him.
You have to ask.
I don't want to.
You can't make a motion.
There's a motion.
There's a motion.
Guys reconsider a motion to table?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so why, excuse me, but why can't Mr. Keel make a motion to amend to table?
Well, he can ask me to amend.
No, he can, why cannot he?
Make the
We
motion.
have to vote on ours first, that's why. Once we vote on it, he can.
You can amend it. Once it moves to discussion, you can amend the motion. You guys can shoot it down.
I asked them if they would consider.
You can amend the motion at any time.
Yes.
No,
Or it's called.
Oh.
Yeah.
His amendment is correct. He can amend.
We're gonna vote on the amendment?
Is it
Yeah,
amended?
if someone seconds my
What is your
motion.
What is your amendment?
My motion is to amend Mr. Cunningham's motion and instead table it and gather a group of people to investigate it further and bring it back next month.
I'll second the motion to table. Amendment to table.
Point of order.
I would ask that
Point of order.
we get more hard numbers from the Pioneer.
So then we call for a vote on the amendment to table.
You were okay to table originally.
Why are we having conversation if we got an amendment to table?
I just asked.
We can still discuss table.
Who's discussing?
He made an amendment to table.
And you second it.
Correct.
Vote, but take the vote.
That's what
But I can't do point of order, which is not, I'm not talking about the legalities of it. I'm talking point of order. We have a resolution motion. I've never heard this one, Robert's Rule of Orders, and I've done this a lot of times. There's a motion on the floor in a second. You can ask for reconsideration. We ask for reconsideration all the time. This has nothing again with this, and I'm allowed to talk of point of order. Point of order is that this is wrong under Robert's Rule of Orders.
Okay. Go ahead.
So call for the amendment.
I said.
I'm going to call for the vote on the.
Mr. Yagowski said it's not. You all do what you're going to do.
Withdraw my motion.
Withdraw my second.
Okay.
Motion.
So then we have a motion to table.
Motion to table.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. We're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Solid waste budget adoption, ordinance number 2023-10C. You can talk to her afterwards.
Cemetery.
Good evening. Well, at least you're not talking about the same thing.
I'm not
So-
asking for any money either.
So the ordinance or resolution for appropriation and tax rates, the budget is $4,266,140.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve and then I'll ask a question.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
Just for clarification, because I've seen a comment out there, how many employees does solid waste have?
8.
8. So this money goes to contracts, the countywide contract to collect all these recyclables and everything else.
One, it goes to pay the salaries of our employees.
Right. But the salaries is a small portion of that.
Yes.
Very small. All right.
Question.
Yes, sir. Cunningham.
These questions should be forever known as the Jessup questions. And do you place your extra funds in interest-bearing accounts?
We don't have enough funds to place in an interest-bearing account. We have an interest-bearing checking account and we have an interest-bearing max account, but the money rolls pretty quick between the 6 months collection times.
What type of operating balance do you guys have right now? Just present moment, just ballpark it.
Probably about, I can tell you exactly here, just a second.
And while you're looking for that checking account, what interest rate are you earning? Ballpark it.
Recently got a bump up. It's almost 3%.
Trust Indiana, 5.3%. Basically checking.
At the end of August, I apologize, I didn't bring I just brought this in August because it's when we did our public hearing. We had a cash balance of $2.368 million. $2,368,000.
Which had to be drawn down until you get the next tranche.
Correct.
Okay.
Which will be June.
Okay. Mr. Yagowski.
I was on Zoom last time. It was difficult to ask because I was on a phone. But anyway, so correct me if I'm wrong. I thought you brought up, Mr. Turner, about, so next year's cost contract-wise is going up for next couple of years.
It's going up 5%.
Every year for next couple of years for at least right?
These 5 years, and then could be extended for an additional 5 years.
So is there any additional money, is additional money that they offer us back for their service for recycling that they give us back? Is that a steady amount?
Yes, it's 7,000 a month, 84,000 a year.
They give us,
It's fixed.
sorry,
Correct. It's fixed.
Fixed.
so they give us 7,000
Yes.
a year, a month, and we get 4,000. We pay,
84,000 a year. 7,000 times 12 is 84,000.
that's fine. And then we pay back,
Well, how much we pay our vendor?
Yes.
About 1.4 million.
okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Any other?
Do you have a 1-year plan and a 5-year plan?
For the solid waste district?
Yeah.
We don't have a 5-year plan. We
They
have a
just
1-year
did that
plan.
contract.
Thank you.
That contract, it's a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Is it, how far are you locked into the 7,000 a month? Is that, are you locked, is that a, how far out is that locked in?
5 years?
5 years. Does that have an increase in it?
No.
It's a flat 7,000 for 5 years.
Right, because the other way is you take a chance on the market, and you know how the economy is. If the market goes down, then we get less money. We just assume to know. And typical with you folks also, you like to know what you're gonna get. I wanna know every year I got $84,000 to supplement my budget with. I don't wanna have 84,000, then next year I only have 16.
What year are you in?
This is the very first year. We're going with a new vendor next year. We went out for bid,
Who's the new vendor?
Borden Waste Away out of Elkhart. It's replacing Republic Services.
They're gonna take styrofoam and paper, plastic bags? I'm beating Mr. Yagowski to that.
We asked, they have their own MRF, so if styrofoam and paper plastic bags get into our container, it won't be tagged, they'll actually take it. Before, Republic was tagging the containers and not taking it. So it's a plus, we're gonna encourage you not to put it in there, but if it gets in there, we'll take it.
Thanks.
Mr. Cunningham, I'm sorry. I was gonna ask him if he had more before we went on.
Last question here.
Okay.
So last year, your attempt to answer my question was ironic, as I should say. You said that you would encourage people to bring containers in. I knew that answer is wrong because the health department does not allow that to do that. So they actually, health department says they would actually say we do not want you bringing containers into your own containers. Even actual, if I have a butter container that's been washed out in a restaurant, I can't reuse that. They don't want reused containers there. So answer your questions you gave last year is that they will not allow that under the health department rules. So my question is, again, we have not done enough to encourage this situation. I know that, for example, I was just down in Florida. They got on a straw program. So these straws are biodegradable. And so they worked in the program so that they give discounts for people to buy in this program. We need to get the program because since this COVID has increased 5 times the amount of the containers that they used to use, 5 times the amount. As I talked to Cisco and, sorry, the other one I can't remember, but they said that sales are increased 5 since COVID. 5 times, not 5%, 5 times the amount. We have to do something because all we're doing is throwing more and more of the stuff away. And I see it every day that I go to a restaurant. And I go to restaurants quite a bit.
There is more being done. I did meet, and I asked Mr. Cunningham to remember this conversation. At our club breakfast, I did meet with Representative Russell and ask him if there's any legislation going on about styrofoam. He said there was not at the time. The Environmental Committee will be looking at that. Our association is actually working with the other states to do the extended producer responsibilities. And you'll notice that, like Subway now, they're going to paper sleeves instead of plastic bag sleeves. A lot of the upper scale restaurants are using plastic containers instead of styrofoam containers. Everybody's doing their part because we're asking the producers, hey, you're producing this stuff. You need to either provide grants to take it back or figure out a way to take it back so we're not responsible for it. So that's where our association is going at this time.
But not effectively, but I understand because truly a number is 5 times the amount. We should not have been asking Mr. President this year because I know I've been asking for many years, including the bags. The older people are very upset, but the ones that come from the grocery store. So it's not something new that I've never asked you about. So this is something that we should have been on 2 years ago.
I'm seeing it is starting to catch on. Like We had a meal at Red's Lobster in Michigan City a month ago. They gave us a carryout in a plastic reusable container. It wasn't a styrofoam one that I had to throw away. I could take it home, wash it out, and I could carry my lunch to work the next day in it. So it is catching on. You might not seem it like at the smaller establishments that can't afford maybe the containers, but it is catching on.
Okay, Mr. Novak?
Real quick, if the grocery stores collect plastic bags, how come, is that something we could put a box out there so that it's easier to?
A box out
at your facility to take plastic bags?
We do collect plastic bags at our facility.
Where do you put, I mean, I go through
We
there
have an
and drop
agreement
off.
with Kroger.
Well, you pick them up from there.
We take them to Kroger and they process them for us.
Oh, where's the bin at your facility?
It's inside our entryway.
Oh, okay, that's all I need to know.
And we actually have a program where we collect every 500 pounds, we get a bench made out of recycled plastic and we donate that bench to different areas in the community.
Right, thank you.
Okay, with that being said, I call to vote. All those in favor, please say aye, or does this need to be a roll call?
No, everybody's here.
No, it doesn't need to be a roll.
Everybody's
Just wanted to be sure because we're all present right here. So, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Carries. Thank you.
Just a reminder, if I could, the auditor's office has the submittal rights for our budget to Gateway, so it has to be done before November 3rd. All right, thank you.
Wanata Public Library budget adoption.
Good evening.
Are you ready for the Jessup questions?
Sure. You guys rode together, didn't you?
You should have had it all settled with Jim over there. You could have just given us a thumbs up. We've been done.
I do want.
Okay, just to make note, the amount of the budget that we have in front of us was $85,350. They were owing to, the adopted tax levy was only $73,250. The difference was gonna come from their savings.
Yes, correct.
Okay, just repeating what we had last month. So now, any discussion?
Do you have your cash balance invested in an interest-bearing account?
We have just a standard interest-bearing checking account. We actually did look at this over the last couple of years. We found that a lot of the instruments that we might have used were not going to give us any better return. We basically bank through Horizon, just keep all our money in one account in Horizon because we're so small. However, it's been 5 or 6 years since we looked at Trust Indiana, and I had, in all honesty, forgotten about that, and so I've got a note to myself
I
to
think
follow
you'll find
up
it
on.
very competitive.
See, I was paying attention.
Anything else?
Just a quick question, because I wasn't here. Was it Wanata or Hannah that had put money away so much for something?
It was this one.
Like, very briefly, about 10 years ago when the county was going through its property tax issues, we had to borrow money like a lot of small entities did. And so our treasurer at the time said, set aside a portion of your budget every year and build up a reserve, which is what we've been doing for about the past 10 years. And now we've got enough of a reserve, we don't need to set that much more money aside each year.
So the reason why I brought this up, because we had to go through it through money that we got from the state, the first time for the toll road and the second time for the ARP. Mr. DiMartino can back me in this one. Did you guys set up a rainy day fund?
We have had a rainy day fund in the past.
Is that on paper saying rainy day fund?
It would just be a separate line item, basically. But yeah, we had one set up on paper. We do not currently.
So you had an ordinance that accepted that, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And so down the road, if we find that it could be advantageous to do that again, we're not opposed to doing it.
No, it's fine. I just was asking about the rainy day fund.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you again very much.
We now get to move on to the Hannah Township Budget Adoption Ordinance Number 2023-10E. Mr. Brad Adamski is here to represent.
Poor guy, he has to answer the Jessup questions and he doesn't even run the books.
So
might make it easier.
I just wanted, the budget estimate is $174,975. Here again, they are going to raise $128,223 through the tax levy is what's the anticipated amount.
And just for clarification, Brad, can you explain why we're approving Hannah's budget?
Absolutely. So I heard Mr. Jessup speak earlier today, and all jokes aside about the Jessup questions, those are very good standards that all townships should abide by.
I don't encourage you.
Sorry.
No, keep encouraging.
The reason Hannah is unique and is the exception for most of the townships is the vast majority of townships don't have to come before you, right? The reason Hannah does is they have a 3-member board, and a majority of the board is or serves as firefighters. So the state has determined that there's a policy, whether it's a firefighter or a relative of a firefighter that's on the board, they shouldn't be adopting their own budget because obviously then they're voting on their own finances, essentially. So that's why it gets passed to the county as the county council as the fiscal body for the county. So that's why Hannah's here. That's why they've been here for the last 5-6 years, and that's why they come before you. I don't know if you want to go through the questions, but one thing I would point out, because I know he brought it up specifically with Hannah, townships don't all come in all same shapes and sizes. They're different. For one thing with Hannah, they're, I guess, what I would consider a firefighter heavy township, not just because their board members are firefighters, but that's the bulk of their business. Mr. Jessup's absolutely right in this case. Their township assistance isn't very active. You know, Center Township, Michigan Township, Springfield Township, those are very active assistants. That's usually going to be involved with rent assistance, utility assistance. I would point out, though, that there is zero tax levy going into the township assistance here, and there hasn't been in some time. So even though they're budgeting $4,500 a year, they're not spending that. So the money that's in that account, which is roughly about $38,000 as of July, nothing's being added to that. And I suppose eventually over time they could change the general levy and move some of that to township assistance, but there's no need to at this point because those funds are just sitting there.
That's the key word, just sitting there. Are they earning any interest?
At the time, no. But I will say when they had their meetings in July, they did have discussions because the trustee asked me about that, and maybe it was brought up at public meeting. I could say historically with townships, usually there's two components to why they probably steered away from investing in CDs. One is liquidity, right? You heard the comment.
CDs, Trust Indiana is almost like a checking account.
100% right. And those rates now are better than they were 5-6 years ago. So I think there was a period of time where people moved away from those investments, and now we're back to where maybe they should be looking at them. I can tell you one of the townships I had that had investment accounts. I've been through 3 trustees with that little township, and all 3 of them had their own struggles with just the books from month to month, just for $1.17 in interest for this $25,000 CD that ultimately they finally liquidated those, but now they should be looking at other options. So.
One of the other questions that came up earlier during public comment was whether or not the township has a capital projects plan. My understanding is that statute requires that now.
Correct. There are certain thresholds for townships to be required to have a capital improvement plan. Some of that is cumulative money saved up over time, whether it's in their general fund, their fire fund, or their cumulative fire fund. In this case, it would apply to Hannah. They did adopt a plan. I want to say 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, as required by state statute. So there's, again, 2 components. One is how much money is combined in those accounts, and I think the threshold at the time was maybe $250,000. They were over that threshold. The other question was, how does that apply to the levy that's coming in? Yeah, and that's...
If you have a copy of that somewhere, I'd love to read it sometime.
Of the capital improvement plan?
Oh yeah, I love reading plans like that.
There's not going to be a whole lot to it. Basically, the idea is what the state wanted to see on this 4 or 5 column Excel spreadsheet was, what are your plans on spending on whatever over the next, say, 3 to 5 years. So I can tell you with Hannah, they were actually in the midst of doing a large project on an extension of their fire department, which failed this year. Failed due to lack of support. So that would have been where they were reinvesting a lot of that money that's in their fire cum fund and their fire fund.
Thank you.
Yep. And I guess I would point out too, the sole difference between this levy or this adopted budget this year as far as the general funds are concerned, or the main funds, there's no longer going to be a fire debt fund. They paid off their fire debt fund last year. They did not reestablish a new debt going forward. So there's actually a decrease overall in the taxes for Hannah Township.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? It carries.
And if I could ask Rhonda, do you have for their signature?
They're coming around as we speak.
Thank you very much.
Does Hannah submit that or do we submit that? Okay.
Yeah, we'll submit.
Thank you.
We move on to the LaPorte County budget. First, there is some minor updates. There's been on MS4 161 and on IT, bear with me, 157. All there's done in those is there's no change in the total amount. It's just been a change in allocations within them. Any other potential updates at this time?
Can you detail specifically what was the amounts of those changes or somebody, just so it's stated into the record?
Do you have it, Rhonda?
For MS4, we have a copy.
So for, Mr. President, you don't mind?
Please.
All right, so we went from originally having, I believe, what was a $55,000, or excuse me, a $62,000 single person salary being split three ways to where you have now, you have 25,000 listed as a first deputy account, you have 15,000 going to, anywhere it's listed as secretary, admin assistant, office manager, and then the third of $15,000 going to program supervisor. Originally, it was $62,000 to program supervisor.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, at the last meeting, Mr. Novak had brought up that they were changing, the mileage went from $3,750 to $5,750. Educational training went from $2,000 to $10,000, and professional services went from $15,000 to $5,000. So the total was the same, but they changed the line items a little bit.
Redistributed.
While we're talking about changes, one of the things I've discussed it variously with a couple members in the auditor's office was changing where we put in the budget the things like perf, the different payroll withholdings. Presently, they're baked into the commissioner's budget. The commissioners really don't have anything to do with it. Those are just amounts. They're set by statute or federal law of how much we have to contribute. Would it make more sense for the auditor's office to be watching those, since payroll is in the auditor's office and they're the ones really dealing with this, just so that we're maintaining a better eye on that throughout the year?
I know when I spoke to Diane, because one of them was negative a lot, she had said that they don't watch those. So I had, payroll is going to give us a list of what is needed for those next month, but they are not currently watched by anyone.
We do believe that it makes sense to make it part of the financial function of the county.
Does anyone have any objections to that?
No objections. I just think about it as being a private business, right? The two major corporations I've worked for, you've either had a payroll administrator that manages not only the payroll wages, but all those taxes reporting to the financial department, or they're a dotted line report while working for human resources. So either way, it makes the most sense with what you're proposing right now.
Agree.
So is everybody in agreement is making that as
We have to change that?
it's just changing the departments? So we're going to include that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we need to take a vote on that? Because it's such a,
Roll it into the.
or just roll it into the overall adoption?
Just roll it into the overall adoption because
And since you had made mention you wanted to get into the record, the IT 157, all we're doing is in the 10111, the elected official or department head account, we're going from 77,033 to 82,033, and in the 20052 account, computer supplies, we're going from $30,000 down to $25,000. The actual salary, according to the salary ordinance, should be 77,033. However, if the FMEC decides to reimburse, the availability to pay those funds without having to do any special allocation in the future will be allowed to be done.
The amount overall, though, is the same.
All we did is 5,001, subtract 5,000 from another. Okay?
I just want to clarify on the item that Justin spoke of, watching those accounts. They're still going to remain, we're not taking them out of the commissioner's budget and putting them somewhere else. You guys are just going to start monitoring them, correct?
I was actually proposing shifting them in the budget.
Then
There's only one thing they can do with it, which is pay PERF, pay Medicare, pay OSDI.
Then you need to suggest what the budget for the commissioners is gonna be. If you're gonna pull, I mean, one of
Line
those
item
is
just gets removed from commissioner's budget, added to auditor's budget. They're responsible for making the proposal each year during budget hearings. They'll tell us what they want it to be.
it's more than one line, it's more than one item.
Yes. So this would be the payroll withholdings, PERF, OASDI, Medicare, and what's the one I'm missing?
So
Disability.
how do we approve a budget when we don't know? I mean, it's the same dollar amount, but we're shifting it over. But so what's the commissioner's budget gonna be now? I mean, we're
The same as it was before, minus those 3 or 4 line items.
We're perfectly comfortable deferring with that portion until next year.
and then they'll go under the auditor's budget.
I mean, we,
They gotta go somewhere. They're also gonna wind up.
yeah, no,
Jury duty budget.
Yeah, somebody needs to be responsible for saying what those amounts should be, because in the past, we weren't making changes to those line items, and so they're underfunded. This year, they're gonna have to come back for an additional appropriation, most likely, because there's not enough money in that. And that's not the fault of the commissioners. I mean, they're just doing something that isn't really their responsibility.
What positions are you talking about? Because I mean, I have
Not
Diane
positions,
on here.
they're line items in your budget.
They're just the payroll taxes.
Yeah, they're payroll taxes.
Withholding tax.
Okay, because I have Diane and we're texting back and forth and she's also on Zoom. But the thing is, she never said that she doesn't watch them. She doesn't budget them. So there's a big difference between not watching them and not budgeting them. So when we submit our payroll and she puts down the hourly basis of everyone, whether they're an hourly salary or whether we're getting salaries, it is up to payroll to make sure that they have that all down pat, like what they're withholding on each item. That's not something that the commissioners or that Diane would be doing.
And that's why I'm proposing shifting it over to the auditor's office. This doesn't give him any more authority to choose on how these get spent. I mean, it's PERF, it gets paid to the state. It's OSDI, it gets paid to the federal government.
a responsibility.
Yeah, we want someone to be watching it, because if you guys, when you present your budget to us, we assume that you're making those requests based off of what you know about those needs. If they are not increased, then we just assume there wasn't an increase needed, which then could lead to a
But
shortfall
that's
later.
always under payroll. That has always been under payroll.
They're the ones that use it, yes.
But we don't budget it.
Yep, and that's why that should get changed.
Well, either that or she need the commission, not she, sorry.
Well, first of all, let's recognize Commissioner Connie Grammarosa is at the microphone.
But
That's
either
number
that
one.
or
Thank you.
commissioners, payroll just need to communicate. And I'm not saying they don't communicate, but they can work together. I don't know that we absolutely have to move it. It just needs to be, somebody needs to be watching it. With the influx of employees and you know, that goes up and down throughout the year, so obviously this is gonna change. It's a never change.
And I think that when we got into trouble with the curator salaries, that was not because there was something that we weren't watching. It was based on the fact that there was an increase given for that salary.
And it wasn't
And
budgeted.
then
It wasn't put in the budget.
it wasn't put into the budget, and then we had the additional problem that part-timers were given a larger amount of money. So with the increase of that and the salary increase that they did, it wasn't because it wasn't being watched. It happened because there were changes in the salaries.
Correct.
So,
We don't view this as any type of, let me be very clear about this, we don't view this as any type of turf battle or anything. I'm not saying anyone else, I'm not saying anyone else, I'm
I
not
just
saying.
want to make clear that because, you know, I know that the statement was made that she doesn't watch it. It's not our jobs to watch because that gets.
We
pulled on
apologize
payroll.
for any phraseology that besmirched Diane. We respect her tremendously. We work together well.
Maybe when during the budget process, the payroll we can verify these numbers during the, you know what I'm saying?
I think that the way I would put it is that, you know, I came to the office two and a half years ago. We've had a lot of calculations, for example, on bonuses, and we had the tail end of COVID bonuses, and there's a lot of calculations that payroll does, and it's very natural that payroll would almost as a second second nature just have more of a handle and responsibility, taking the responsibility for having a handle. It's frankly a burden. I mean, if the commissioner's office wants the responsibility, I just think it's
We
natural.
never had it.
It's not a response, just, it's a.
We never had it.
Well, and that's kind of Councilman Keel's point. He could speak to himself that if it's just something that goes in there, we have a better sense. Payroll has a better sense of what that number should be, so that you can budget accurately and properly. That's
Right.
And we're happy to do that. They just didn't know that they should be watching it, so it was just unwatched currently.
I think, no.
No, I
Watch
don't,
it. They
I
know
don't
that-
think it's a
they
matter
know that it goes into negative.
right.
That's what I'm saying. Payroll had not been watching it because they didn't realize since it wasn't in our budget. So that's all.
And again, it was because a position was raised, and that was done by the council.
No, I'm talking about
When
the
when it
deductions.
gave the, right.
Yeah,
So
the
that's all
curators
done.
aren't, nothing to do with those, just those deductions, just like the 10119.
Right, so that would never fall on us, the commissioner's budget, because.
It's in
when
your
we-
budget.
But when we designate what we're gonna pay everybody, it's up to the payroll to make the proper deductions.
No one knew that.
Let me bring it back to the council.
There needs to be check and balance when we give a raise like we did last year, then it needs to go through and all these numbers need to be recalculated and plugged into their budget. If that's where it stays, or whoever's budget it goes in.
Yeah, just being aware of it is helpful for us because we weren't aware of that with us all being new in the payroll.
All I'm intending to do here is just to clear up who's responsible for what, trying to streamline it, make sure that the departments that are most involved with it are the ones who are proposing budgets for it and talking to us on a regular basis about it. That's it. It's not trying to slay the commissioners at all.
The way it's gonna stay is that we're still gonna do our timesheets, and we're gonna turn it over to the auditor's office, to the payroll, and the payroll's gonna pull the right deductions out.
Yep.
Other than that, we're not looking for any added responsibility on it. Thank you.
I recommend we just leave it where it is for this year, but we make sure that we, with the recommendation for next year, so that everybody talks, if we need to move it, we can move it. So it's not a last minute.
Shift.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I can make a motion for the adoption of ordinance
Thank
number
you.
2023-10F as stated, with corrections as stated,
With the two department corrections.
as stated.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Earl did.
Second.
Thank you, Earl. Mr. Cunningham. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk briefly about what the next steps in our budget process are going to be. So I asked Ms. Graves earlier today when we anticipate we're going to get the 1782 notice. For background, for those who aren't government nerds, the 1782 notice is basically where the DLGF looks at our proposed budget, they make any amendments or changes, they give it back to us, and we then have 10 days to either agree with those changes or propose other revisions. Most importantly, you guys all have a copy of our Form 4B. On page 2, which is the general fund, you'll see at the very bottom that we're anticipating an operating balance at the end of 2024 as negative $637,000. That amount is going to be cut by the DLGF. It could be higher than that, but that is the minimum that's going to be cut when they send that 1782 notice.
We're expecting.
Yes. And we believe that we're going to get that notice. What was that again, the dates for that?
The earliest was November 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Okay.
The,
And then we'll have 10 days after that.
the reason why this concern is being raised is that we may have to have an earlier meeting,
Yes.
and we would only be dealing with this one issue. So I just want to let people be aware, so that we'll be ready to schedule a meeting and get it done in a timely fashion. That's all. That was the reason for this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay? So with that being said, all those in favor, please say aye. Any nays? Nay? Motion carries.
Was that one nay?
Yes, one nay.
Thank you, sir.
Move on to appropriations, transfers, and requests. LaPorte County Board of Commissioners requesting additional appropriation for Merva Boat Wind Tax or ARP for postage for
Motion to
$50,000.
approve out of wind tax.
We have a motion to approve it out of wind tax. Any second?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Mr. Yagowski did?
Question.
Yes?
So this is something that was brought up, the prosecutor's here, I would like to ask a question. this might have been going on for a while. Maybe that a lot of times we just don't know about it. I thought I heard that they have a machine for postage,
They do.
and yet they're going to you for asking for money.
They actually bring some of their mail to us instead of using their own postage.
So the council, and it's, again, this is prior to the present administration. We asked for all the departments to put it under the commissioners. So I would highly recommend that we follow the rule and that machine goes away and it goes to commissioners. I'm okay with paying the money. The postage went up, I get it. But I don't believe there should be a twofold system.
But then they shouldn't have a line item in their budget.
I agree, Mr. President. I'm sorry.
And that would transfer over to us.
Right, I agree.
So all I'm saying is that I'm gonna I like to make it so that we deduct that amount, take that machine, disregard it however we can do it, and all of the mail goes through the commissioners like it should, like every department should.
So I would like to just explain a little bit to you. The budget of how it was for postage. In 2013, we had a $200,000 budget for it. In 2014, it went up to $200,328. In 15, they knocked it down to $150. In 16, they knocked it down to $125. 17, $125. 18, $125. 19, it went to $89.5. In 2020, it went to $89.5. In 2021, it stayed the same. 2022, it went up to $95,000 and then $95,000. Some of the problems that we're having here is, besides the fact with the probation, with the prosecutors, we also have like the clerk's office, and they're really good about like collecting the fees from the client. So if they have to send something out to them, they collect that fund in. The problem that we foresee in the commission is that instead of that money that we're collecting, and this is just last year, in March of 2022, they took in $287.79. On April 1st, they took in $178.47. 4/4 of 22, they took in $119.62, and the list goes on and on and on. So my point is that when they're taking in this money, instead of going to the postage account, it goes into the general fund. So is there a way of when this money is coming in, instead of putting it into a general fund and then us having to come back to you guys and ask for additional appropriations, that this money not go to the commissioners but actually go onto the postage line item so that we can be able to pull out of there? Is that something that we can get done that would really just help all of us out?
Ms. Graves?
It would still have to be done by council appropriation, but because it's in general fund, it definitely could be appropriated for postage. But it would still be an
We couldn't
appropriation.
set that into an account and then kind of
All
like,
appropriations have to be approved by council regardless unless statute
so
says
could we
otherwise.
appropriate it once a year?
Yes.
Appropriate however often.
So then, so we can put it in, capture that and keep it in an account, and then once a year we'll transfer it over.
It goes into a
Goes into the general
receipt
fund.
account, yeah, so it's,
But it's not tracked necessarily, unless you're looking for it right now.
it could be looked up easily,
Right.
but yeah.
So,
Okay, is there any other discussion before we go to vote?
Yeah, that makes too much sense.
But I will tell you, I did look up the prosecutor budget, and they have $500 for postage on their budget, if that helps you.
But
No, it doesn't.
it doesn't, because I don't understand why they still have a machine. I'm not blaming the present prosecutor, because this has happened before he even got into the office. I think that we should disregard the machine once you use it up at the end of the year contract, because I know it goes at the end of the year anyway. And then I would like to take that amount and then give it to the commission, put it in the commissioner's account.
Just to let you know, it was 500.
Okay.
So you're saying not use the machine anymore?
Not to use their machine, they use the
So
commission.
we pay rent on those machines yearly.
Right.
So I guess, if there's a point where we could,
They have their own machine.
that machine in Michigan, we have, the commissioners have one here and one in Michigan City,
yes, we do.
in addition to.
You would have to ask the
Where's yours at?
prosecutor.
Let me think about that.
Okay, I'd like to call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Motion carries. LaPorte County, thank you very much.
And can I just ask one other question, because you guys brought this up, and that was about the Shared Ethics Advisory. You're making a suggestion that we make an appointment for that. When is that position available? Is it a yearly or is it a 4-year appointment? Since you guys were bringing this all up.
It's a yearly, and it's just it's an appointment of someone in the county to kind of oversee it and be a representative there.
SEAC has a board of delegates.
So they must have changed it, because I was one. I was one a couple years back, and it was a 4-year appointment, and we had just appointed that person in 2022. And so she has, and her name was April Daly. And so she did not resign from that position, and I don't know that if we can just take her out of that position, but I thought maybe you guys knew, since you were talking about it and you were bringing that up.
When they spoke to us about it, I think you were there when Cal walked up to me, but they seem to be under the impression that we don't have an appointee to it. So
Maybe we need to reach out to Ms. Daly.
Okay.
yeah.
I just thought maybe you guys knew, since you had brought it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to LaPorte County Clerk's Office requesting additional appropriation from the Clerk's Record Perpetuation Fund 1119 for computers not to exceed $70,000.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, please. So I've been in contact with the clerk's office. Understand that right now she's looking to procure these machines based on information from IT in order to assure that we get the right machines at the right price. And obviously, she's making mention of that here in the request. We're talking about Black Friday.
She's contacted me, she's okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we were discussing this earlier today, and Ms. Stevens, please feel free to interrupt me if necessary, but up through about noon today, she had not had any information to understand the technical requirements of the machines so that she can quote the right machines.
That's
Darlene, or you're talking about Heather?
Right.
Darlene or Heather?
That Heather had not yet received the information from Darlene.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I have heard from Darlene. She is putting some stuff together for me.
Okay.
But basically what we want to do is we want to take advantage of the Black Friday sales, because we're talking 35 computers plus monitors plus software. So we're trying to be as smart about this as possible. And she will continue to work with me so that we can make sure that we're getting exactly what we need.
Okay. In addition to the Black Friday type of purchase, I wouldn't mind. I know that there are specific vendors out there that'll work with corporations or county or large entities in order to say, here's the rate we're going to give you for, in this case, 35 machines plus monitors, at least to get some kind of bid or quote prior to the end of November. Is that something that you think is possible?
I could.
Yes.
I'm going to have to interrupt. I'm sorry. I could request a meeting with our group because right now we go with the government rate, and they do have these discounts if you buy sometimes, but it's a government rate from the computer company itself. We don't ask for bids because we get the government rate.
We just have to confirm.
If you want me to ask for a different system, we'd have to go to a bidding system. We don't bid out computers.
No, that's fine. I understand that there is a system and not just preferred vendor.
Correct.
Good. Yeah, okay.
And it is a not to exceed, so.
Yeah, and the IT group meets on that every year.
Perfect.
And this is, just for clarification, this is from their perpetuation fund.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
tax
O'Rourke.
dollars, it's user fees.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Moving to LaPorte County Information Technology, requesting additional appropriation from the General Fund 1,000 for payroll deposited by FMEC for
So
$5,000.
just for clarification, this is, FMEC every year gives a stipend to the IT director and to the maintenance director, and this is the $5,000 check that was sent over from FMEC to go to the IT director's salary. And
I need a motion?
it's appropriate. That's a motion.
No, that's a motion. Sorry, I thought you said it. I'm just explaining. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Question? Oh, I thought there was a second.
Was there a second? I did not hear a second. Can we get a second, please? Thank you. Now your question.
So technically, this is a transfer of money that you transferred in, now we transferred out, correct?
So it can be appropriated.
Is there a way to, something we can pass that just says that every year we appropriate that money when it comes from FMEC and it's done? We don't have to do this every year?
Well, if it's coming from an outside corporation, which FMEC is, and it's coming into the county, Ms. Graves says that everything needs to be appropriated.
The state says that. I don't
Well,
have any rules.
I didn't make it that it's your rule.
On the rule.
There's a lot of
Okay.
rules, yeah.
So,
That's what I'm hearing.
any other
Make that
discussion?
clarification before I vote.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? LaPorte County Human Resources requesting additional appropriation from ARP for salary study reappropriation, $870.
In looking at the budget lines, because there were accounts that were in the negative, this was one that was in the negative, and after researching, last year there was a $20,000 appropriation in ARP, but it was not all used, nor was it encumbered. So it's really just a reappropriation of this $870.
So it's not additional.
Correct. It's not additional from last year, correct.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
LaPorte County Juvenile Probation requesting additional appropriation from Superior Court Number 4 Transfer Fees Fund 7121 for transfer of juvenile offenders, $500.
Motion approved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? LaPorte County Health Department requesting additional appropriation from ARP for vehicle originally appropriated in 2021 but purchased in 2023, $58,182.86.
Same thing, was encumbered in 22, but wasn't used, wasn't encumbered in 23, and was used.
Right, and I think we're gonna wind up having this happen on all the ambulance because there was that much lead time to get a vehicle. So not you, so.
Yes,
when
because those appropriations were only motions of
they
support.
ordered it, and I think it was 2 years out
Yeah.
to get a vehicle, so, motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Requesting transfer from Riverboat to Rainy Day Fund, 50% of July receipts, 50% of August receipts for a total of $862,017.50.
This will bring us current in the procedural transfers that we do out of Riverboat to Rainy Day, correct?
That is correct.
Well, through
Current
August.
Through August, but
Yes, the August one was a supplemental, not normally, it's usually quarterly, but there was a supplemental done. So we are up to date so far.
we just finished the third quarter, so shouldn't we have another one coming here soon?
Yes, should be. Beginning of
Not yet in.
November.
Is that a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion to do the transfers.
Second.
Third.
Question?
Yes, sir.
I'm somewhat confused because I have a email here dated October 10th that says that the average quarterly payment to the river fund is $343,000. Now, if we took half of that, so that's how we replenish. But now I'm looking at these figures, it says 50% of July was 174,000, so that must have been 350,000, and 50% of August, 687,000. So how do we reconcile these two statements?
The quarterly payment average is the 300 and some thousand. So that's what that was about.
Yeah, but how do you?
Then there was a supplemental
Well, that's what I'm
payment.
asking you. If the 50% of the August receipt was 687,000,
That's what I explained a minute ago. That was a supplemental payment. That is not a typical payment. Usually it's only the quarterly payments.
okay, the previous one was for July, 50% of July,
Correct. That was one of the quarterly payments.
that was 174,000.
Half of that 300 and some, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the 687, we're just making that as a supplemental for some reason.
It came as a supplemental deposit from the state, yes. Of 1.2 million
The state gives us Riverboat transfers monthly, correct?
quarterly.
Quarterly.
Yeah, so it was unusual to get that August one.
Was there any explanation from them?
We're not gonna talk about it.
Thank you.
We don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Well, technically, what it comes down to is this. They've been holding our 687,000 for a couple months that we could have been drawing.
It's possible they do this every August, but right now I don't have that explanation. It's possible that I've seen it in writing. I'll have to look, but I will find that for you, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Requesting appropriation reversal from rainy day fund for flood renovation claim June 2023, $1,729,463, and flood renovation claim in June 2023 for $580,000. We, in June, appropriated out of a different name of a different fund, even though the account number was the same. We then did the same thing again after we made a change to the ordinance so that we can be in compliance. We went back and checked all that. We did that in August. We reappropriated funds for the same amount on the 1.7 million so that we can start paying the bills and get the renovations done in the annex. And if anybody would like to go see it, please give Andy Skiat a call. He'd be more than happy to show you. You'd be quite surprised in taking a view. So this is just to reverse it. It's a bookkeeping thing. Need a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Comment.
Yes, sir.
Glad Mr. Jessup is still here because he can see that we're making everything pretty clear here, right? Thank you.
That was reassuring.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Requesting additional appropriations from Riverboat or Wind Tax, or ARP, for jury paid fund correction, $66,638.67, and jury pay for October, $8,152, for a total of $74,790.67. This was the amount that was known at the time of appropriations. We've heard evidence that is now should be higher, but we only could use the number that we knew at the time.
I got a question.
Yes.
How come, why, it's on, sorry, wasn't talking loud enough. Why aren't we, the 8152 for October, how come we're not doing that for November and December also?
So what happened was I have been talking with Chris Nichols from the circuit court for a while about this. So she had known that they were going to have a jury in October. So she said last time we did it, it was about $8,152. So she gave me that amount so that we could get it done, and then they would be doing it like on the 30th tomorrow. But that got canceled. So that's why she gave me that number, was because she expected that was a jury that she knew of coming up.
But what happens if they have a jury trial between this meeting and the end of the year?
Well, sadly, we're going to have to keep paying in the negative as we have been, because we haven't done it.
But we don't want to.
We want to estimate for next month, and we'll have to speak with the courts. And we'll have to estimate a little bit higher, and then that way.
There's a jury trial right now in November.
Yeah, so with all of this going on, we'll have to estimate so that we cover it for the rest of the year, so we are not negative at the end.
And even just pick it
To
up
our
if
best,
we
to our
can't
best.
estimate, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll be happy to work that number with you.
My request would be is next, at our last meeting, that we have another contribution to that.
Correct.
Just to make sure, because as the judge stated, if we don't use it, it stays in there. Right? Because we got to fund this next year.
It will not, the money that you appropriate will not be moved in there. But yes, if that supplemental account's not used, it would stay in there. But we can't put it in the jury fund. We have to do some corrections. We can't transfer from fund to fund.
The 8152 is not going in the jury fund?
So we're going to ask the attorney to step in.
We can't. Then this,
It's a permission to spend.
We're requesting an additional appropriation because you cannot transfer from fund to fund. The only thing in the jury fund is what comes from the clerk's office. So what is supposed to happen is that the council would have set a budget for the courts. We didn't do that. So you're gonna, from county general, assumingly, yeah. And we didn't do that. So the rest of this year and then next year, you're gonna have to pick a fund to pay it from. And then that's where they will pay it from, using, if there's money in the jury pay fund, as a supplement as it's intended. So no, you cannot transfer by
It doesn't
statute.
seem like we're making government any easier.
we're following the statute, not about making it
I
easier,
don't-
but fiscally responsible.
Okay, so we have a motion on the, so we have a request here for $74,790.67. Would someone like to make a motion in which account?
Question, is this eligible for public safety lit?
The public safety lit is very low if we took a look.
I don't think so.
Thank you.
So where's this $8,000 going to now then if there is no jury in October?
There's a jury in November.
The account is currently negative $79,736.34. So that full 74,000 would be appropriated, and then we have to do claims adjustments from jury pay fund to wherever you appropriate it tonight. So it will all be used on covering the negative amount.
I make a motion to appropriate $74,790.67 out of Riverboat.
That has the most funds. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
And this is going to the jury pay fund.
Yes. No. Well, it's going to pay the jury fees.
It's going to offset. We cannot transfer between funds, so what will happen is, because it's overdrawn, they will actually pull those claims out of jury pay fund and pay them from where you designate tonight. So it's called a claims adjustment.
So let me ask you this, to keep it simple, because I'm a simple-minded person. If the jury fund is short 70,000, make it an even number,
Yeah, 80,000.
and we're gonna appropriate $70,000 to make up that. But you don't transfer that money into that account,
Not
because you
yet.
don't transfer.
Yeah.
So how
Because
does
the state doesn't
so
allow
how is that
transfers.
account whole then?
How does it what?
How is it whole? How do you make that account whole?
Rebook, you rebook the expenses.
I just
You,
explained.
yeah, a claims adjustment is a rebooking of expenses. And what that means is that the thing that made it go negative, you then instead expend them from the general fund, which you're potentially appropriating tonight. Does that make sense? Is that right?
So then how is that gonna show when we look at the budgets next year? Is it gonna show Riverboat supplement $70,000? Assuming we see the jury.
Isn't budgeted, so it won't
That's-
show on a budget. It's not budgeted.
So when we sit down with the budget again, and
Yeah.
I'm not, this isn't a pick on you, I'm
I
just
don't take it
asking
as,
this
I
question.
answered it, but feel free to ask
Right.
again.
How do we sit down and go through a budget when we don't know what's been added, what hasn't been added, because it's not being added to that fund?
That fund is not budgeted anyway, nor is Riverboat, so you would never see them in a budget meeting regardless.
That
Should they be
So
budgeted?
to be able to
we
budget,
should be seeing, it should be in one of the judges.
but that's not what you asked. It's not in the judges, so you're not gonna see it. When we go to budget, you're not given, the budget does not include Riverboat. So you're not gonna see that adjustment.
I'm going to make the following recommendation, that when we take a look at 2025's budget, that we take a look at what we spent out of all of the other funds.
Match 'em up.
And try and match up what we used for these different appropriations. It's going to take a little bit more work. But at least we may be getting some answers so we can get a better budget.
And if I'm not mistaken, there were some line items that were like additional appropriations that showed up in the middle column.
That's correct on the budgeted, you're correct, but those were on
So they will
budgeted.
show. But we need to make sure that the jury pay,
It's not budgeted, so you won't see it. It will not be part of
Excuse
that
me, but what
printout.
Mr. Novak is just saying, he wants to be able to look somewhere so he can see how much was paid out of the money so we can appropriate that next year. So somewhere it has to be identified or documented. Otherwise, he's in the blind. I think that's what he's saying.
This is true of very many
Require
funds. I mean, we
printing the
have
ledgers.
240, 270 some funds.
Well, this is why the additional appropriations are hard.
she should have left this one until January.
This, Mr. DiMartino, this is why the additional appropriations are hard, because there is no tracking system of them once we're doing 30 out of ARP.
Okay, I'd like to bring it back up here. We have a motion made by Justin Keel for $74,790.67 out of the Riverboat. I need a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay. Nay.
You're gonna have to do a roll call, because I don't think it passed.
Let's see. One. Councilman Cunningham.
Nay.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Nay.
Councilman Yagelski.
Hey,
And Councilman Molinar.
Nay.
And I didn't count those. What was that?
3-4. It fails.
fails.
4-3 fails. Thank you.
Okay, requesting transfer from the 1000.20001 to 1000.30027 for administrative fee for U.S. bank bond, $500.
Question.
Yes.
Is this US bank bond, is that redevelopment's bond?
No, that was the
This is the Michigan City.
Michigan City Courthouse.
Port Courthouse.
Michigan City. I'm pretty sure it's no, the general fund is the LaPorte Courthouse. General fund is LaPorte Courthouse.
And,
This is the fee they added. They started adding.
well, I think we pay this on a lot of them. I think there's a fee every year that
It's
goes on.
normal like
Right,
this, yeah.
okay.
That's new.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Where we, do we need to specify where?
No, it's a transfer.
Okay, that's right.
Thank you very much.
Right.
That's it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. LaPorte County Hazmat requesting additional appropriation from Lit Public Safety or Riverboat or Wind Tax or ARP, Local Emergency Plan and Right to Know Fund correction, $7,752.87.
Motion to approve out of PS Lit.
We have a motion to approve and a second at a PS Lit. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Hey.
Hey,
LaPorte County Prosecutor requesting additional appropriation from Public Safety Lit or Riverboat or Wind Tax or ARP, Victims Advocate Grant, Health Insurance Account Correction, $19,591.
Did you all read the email that I had sent regarding the additional appropriation? Why?
Just please take a moment and share with us.
Yeah, so August 2022, last year, October 2022, my predecessor came up here, was asking for funds because our VOCA grant, the Victim Advocates Grant, federal grant funneled through the state. It's supposed to cover all our expenses for our victim advocates that are covered by the grant. That grant is based on a reimbursement scale. So at the end of when the grant, it's a 2-year grant, when it ended in October 2022, because of the 2 years that it's aligned with the federal budget cycle, there was a negative balance and overage because of health insurance costs. So in October 2022, my predecessor came up, asked for an additional appropriation. For some reason, it was tabled. And so I found out about that a year later, and so that's why I'm here, because that's, I think, if I remember correctly, it's supposed to be applied to previous expenses from the prior VOCA grant, because the VOCA grant for the new one started in October 2022, runs through October 2024, so any expenses that are not covered would be covered under 2024. So, and we're going to be facing that. We have a similar situation going on with our APS contract with the state, where we will be transferring funds from one account to another because of overages or shortages because of increased healthcare costs for employees.
Okay, what would the council like to do and which fund?
For clarification. So we're thinking this money is like owed from a year ago? Is that,
Yeah.
is this one of those overage accounts that we're short into? That's why I looked at you, because I figured you did.
Yes, it is.
is this a grant that's halfway through the year? did this grant start in June and July or whatever it is?
No, well, it's one of the 3 budget years we have to deal with. This one, the VOCA grant, is federally based, so October to October, but the grant itself is based on a 2-year award period, so 2022, 22, 24. So any costs for this one, that for overages, shortages, whatever, will be a year from now when we're reapplying for the grant and everything, so.
Is it reimbursable?
No, because the grant ran out of money.
No.
We still had expenses for that time period. It was tabled a year ago, and this is left over as
My question is because, is it not a January to January?
no.
I know, because it's not January to January, they didn't have the amount of money for health insurance. Can they apply for the money that they lost?
This grant cycle, the 22 to 24, not, it was probably done before you came in then.
Yes, sir. So, but this one, for this money, for the 19K, is 2022.
2020 to 2022. Okay.
So I guess my question, when
You
the
just think
grant was
it can't
applied
be
for, was it
funded from
increased to
elsewhere?
cover this cost?
Is that what you're?
No, because it's on a 2-year cycle, so it's a 2-year
good.
award.
I just wanted to
So
make
when
sure.
we apply for the next
24,
one,
You'll be applying next year.
yeah, for the 24, 26, we'll apply for next year. And so we got an original amount in the 22, 24 award. It was short. We asked for a supplement. They supplemented it. It can't be back applied to prior years. It can only be applied during the current award, so 22, 24.
I just have a quick question for the attorney. It was tabled a year ago. It doesn't have to come off the table since it was something tabled over a year ago.
It doesn't. It's a different administration.
So
and-
I just want to make sure we want to do this right, that we've
But
done it.
I still don't. Ms. Graves, is this just to clear up a shortfall that you were cleaning up the accounts? Is
They
this-
came to me with this, and actually, I think Cheryl caught it, was it? Oh, our office caught it?
Well, one of you.
Oh, then yes. The answer is yes. Then I just didn't remember which ones they were. So yes, while we were looking at accounts, we noticed which ones were negative. We then asked the administrators, the grant administrators, about it. So someone, I'm assuming Cheryl, did the investigation on her side. Someone in his office did and found out what this was for. And we did find in the minutes of October of 22 where it was asked for, and they said to table it until January of 23, but then it was not on the agenda for January of 2023. So,
So this is a negative account, and that's how it came to your
yes,
attention?
yes,
So it's not like, okay.
yeah. And they did ask in October.
What's your answer, Mr.
The
Rosenbaum?
council did table it until January, but it never got brought up.
Because my predecessor asked for 2 or 3 different things all kind of at the same time, and because one was far in the future, and then the other 2 different concerns, and it's like, oh, just wait till January, new budget year, and it kind of got lost. So
Where does this money go now? To who?
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Well, it's a grant.
Well, it's a shortfall, so you would select where you want to pay it from, and then there would need to be a claims adjustment so that that payment would be removed from that grant and taken from wherever you appropriate it from, just as would have to be done with jury pay fund.
Motion to appropriate $19,591 out of Riverboat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays?
Hey,
Okay, we move to requesting a transfer from County User Fee Fund 2500 to Prosecutor Pretrial Diversion and Deferral Fund 2501 for office equipment 10,000 and for Doombrook, a donation to Doombrook and $15,000.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a second.
question.
Any discussion?
Question. So, and I know it's a transfer. Is this the amount of money that a prosecutor normally just gives? You're just letting us know what you're doing with the Dunbrook account?
yeah, we're trying to continue the good work, our contribution to Doombrook.
Uh-huh.
I believe the usual contribution is between 15 and 20, so it's making them whole for what wasn't contributed this year. We needed the legal authority to do it.
Right.
So we're just trying to catch up with.
So again, it's not and I have no problem with you doing this, but this is the normal thing. You just come in and tell us that you're giving money to Dunebrook.
Right, just so that we have the funds available, because we've given money to different organizations, so.
I don't think it was done last year. At the end of the year, there was some.
No, it has to come before it has to come before the council.
Money has to be
I
appropriate.
never said that. I said, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm asking a question. Is this the normal prosecutor money that they're allowed to donate to donations?
Only when it
Comes from.
yes, but it has to be excess funds, or it has to be for the.
Okay with that? Just a normal donation. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So are there any other discussion?
Just real quickly, have we cleared up the whole discretionary funds, non-discretionary?
Well, we've done it a different way. We haven't done it the same way, but this works.
You're just gonna come before us?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that increases accountability, and that's what the
Yep.
ordinance says, so,
We're okay.
yeah.
Just double
Transparency.
Okay,
asking.
I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, LaPorte County FMEC requesting appropriation from ARP, amount deposited from FMEC to cover excess expenditure on bathroom project. I thought this was.
So just so everybody understands,
Yes. I forgot it.
Pioneer Land contributed $10,000 towards the bathroom project out there. There is a budget shortfall on that, and this $10,000 is going to be appropriated towards that. They made the check out to FMEC, and FMEC deposited it in the account to go towards the bathroom. So it's Pioneer's contribution to the bathroom, so.
Need a motion?
Motion approved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. LaPorte County Community Corrections requesting a transfer from motor vehicle supplies to travel for fall 2023 Training Institute in Indianapolis, $1,075.29. We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Question. What, how come this one does not fall under the commissioner's,
Travel.
travel?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
He was wondering why it wasn't under Commissioner's travel while you have your
All
own account,
departments are
travel
supposed to be in
account.
front of the commission, they have a budget for it.
But is the commissioners just elected officials?
No. No. It's anybody. All travel, so this.
So are you
I have no
asking-
prob- This has nothing to do with you getting the money, I'm just saying it's how we're doing who's paying the bill. We give the commissioners money for that, they're supposed to go, they're supposed to go in front of the commissioners, not in front of the council.
Different places have their own budgets for travel, so, they have a budget in this account, which is their, what is it, 9,000, so their, DOJ grant. But when you have the funds,
Okay.
you still have to go before commission.
You asked the question, is DOJ grant money?
Yes.
You guys have your own.
Answered it, thank you.
You have your own board, right?
Yes.
So do you actually have to get commissioner authorization for it still?
To
or
transfer the money we do. We went before the board gave us permission to go before the commissioners, and then they gave us permission to come before you.
President,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
grant
Any
money, I
further
understand.
discussion?
It's grant money, I understand.
Right.
Okay, good. So wish we got that right first. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Requesting transfer from part-time pay to drug testing for drug testing costs, $15,000.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Requesting additional appropriation for public safety lit or riverboat or wind tax or ARP for GPS devices, $158,132.70. Be very careful here because I'm not sure there's much money left in lit.
I can tell you how much.
Is this a reoccurring contract cost or is this an overage?
This is when I asked you all for the 200,000, and then you told me to come back, but we didn't need 200,000, so we made sure we asked you exactly for what we needed.
The balance in lit public safety would be $188,702.
Don't touch it.
We already spent.
I know, I'm telling you what it is
That
after
included
those.
it?
Do what?
That included what we appropriated earlier?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's why I say let's go with riverboat or wind tax.
And that's through the end of the year.
A motion to approve $158,132.70 out of Riverboat.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. President, statement.
Yes, sir?
This has been brought up before. This is not your fault. It's the court's problem. These devices are benefit for the community corrections. They are not charging enough money and getting the money reimbursed from community corrections for these GPS units. So I can't even support this. Again, this is the judges should be ruling this stuff. This is a privilege to go into community corrections, and they should be paying for it. They're not paying for it.
Well, they did go from 200,000 down to 158, so.
They're not charging people.
I agree, but they collected a little bit more than they did last year, so.
Okay, for a little bit more, this is not what the judges simply will not charge.
I'm gonna ask a question.
Okay, go ahead.
That on these fees that you're allowed to charge, and I'll use the word guests versus inmates or whatever, and
Participants.
What do you call it?
Participants.
participants, thank you, I appreciate that word better. Is it a statutory rate by the state, or is it something that is, who sets that rate? Is it your board that sets that rate?
Yes, it's our board, and we
Okay.
recently just went up on the fee, I think 2 years ago.
So I'm going to ask you to have that fee reconsidered again.
The problem is collecting the fee.
Problem is they don't
No,
want-
we get that,
People
but
don't have money, so.
they're not even trying.
The majority of the participants are considered indigent, and so you cannot not use this as a sanction for individuals who are indigent. You cannot base a sanction solely on their whether they can or cannot pay. That's why the courts can put them on the program, because they can't penalize people for not having the ability not to pay.
Mr. President,
They have to make an attempt.
Mr. Karanka?
is there any services used for collections, reimbursement after the fact? You know, and after the program's done, maybe using a contractor where we at least recover half of our rate.
Yes, we go after their taxes.
Okay.
We also work with an attorney for collections, but you have to understand the population of people we deal with, that a lot of them are not working. They bounce from home to home. As soon as they leave our facility, they change their phone numbers. So it is a cat and mouse game of trying to chase them down.
Oh, understood. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Requesting additional appropriation from Project Income Fund 4909 for vehicles not to exceed $80,000.
Motion to approve, and I commend you for going and finding a different way to fund those, so.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Question.
Yes?
In the past, LaPorte County Community Corrections vehicles prior to your administration were through grant money. That was how the cars were purchased. They actually weren't belong to the county, they belonged to you. They were not?
No, they always come through Project Income. Via the grant, you cannot purchase vehicles with the state grant.
In the county, well, then who paid for the cars then?
It was through Project Income, the
Right,
participant fees.
But it didn't come out of the general fund.
Right,
That's my statement.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, I agree.
May I
These
ask?
aren't either, so.
Any further discussion?
What is that?
Sorry, no, didn't mean to cut people off. Go ahead.
This is for 4 vehicles, right? And then you're getting a 5th one through.
Well, we're gonna have to relook at how we're going to purchase vehicles, because the commissioners would not allow us to purchase the vehicles that I requested, because they wanted us to purchase American vehicles. And so we did not get the same price quotes that we got from the other vendors.
Are we getting the price quotes from the state?
Well, the state QPA,
The
but
QPA, but they would, okay.
you could pick the vehicle, the brand you want, and the state has a state QPA for almost everything.
However, it was the commissions that denied that request.
It could be worthwhile pointing out that some of these foreign companies do have American factories that are making these vehicles, so.
I understand. I
But
can,
just out of curiosity, what were you gonna buy?
Hyundai's, Hyundai venues, they were gonna give us 5 of them
So is this,
at about
I know that's not-
1,000 apiece.
I know it's not your problem, but Ford and GM make cars in Mexico, so how do we know which one's the American car? I'm curious, never mind.
May I ask a question? The email that I had sent, it would only be appropriating up to that amount. You're okay with that?
We have for this month, we'll be depositing $86,000 this month. Each month, we have project income fees where the individuals pay fees, and so we might make a monthly deposit. So this month would be $86,000. Also, there's monies that we were not going to spend for salaries. The project income fund, I may be using the wrong terminology, but it's a reverting fund. All of that money stays within that fund. So whatever we spend in that fund, we will have the money in that fund for that.
All right.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor.
So you're still getting 5 vehicles, but you don't know what kind yet.
And I'm not sure if we'll be able to get 5 vehicles because we did not
For
get the
what she
same
asked for,
price.
she might not be able to buy the same amount of vehicles.
Correct.
So she may need to come back now that she knows that she's gonna put more money in there. Okay, so we have a not to exceed $80,000.
Clear as mud. Okay.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Requesting additional appropriation from misdemeanor fund for a vehicle for not to exceed $30,000.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and I have a second. Discussion?
Question, hate to ask this question, is this a Buy America card too?
Yes.
Out of curiosity, what happens with your vehicles after you purchase new ones?
We're going to trade those in.
Trade them in. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Just as conclusion, I mean, the department's not any different than anything. It should go to the commissioners. The commissioners have been doing auctions, so you should find out what the commissioners, because we are selling cars on auction, and they had an auction supposed to be coming up. I don't know where I have
I
to.
think they had the auction.
Okay.
Yeah, the auction is done.
Yeah, so these cars should be going to auction. Because we're
Well, we're not gonna hold them for another year.
We're not getting anything from,
We don't know that yet.
okay, yes, we do, but okay.
Okay? We're gonna suggest that you bring them, that we may be able to get more money from auction than from a trade-in. So it would be very nice to
Get both
have a
prices.
discussion to figure out.
To get both prices, with a trade-in, without a trade-in.
The downside to that is she's gonna get less cars because she's not getting a trade, and she doesn't get the money after we sell them at the auction.
Yeah.
So, and it's all coming out of her funds. You see what I'm saying? I agree with you about selling at auction, but.
We just asked her to take a look, that's all. So, any further discussion?
In this case.
I understand.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
I got one other question pertaining to, did you ever figure out what you were gonna do with a cage? You talked about a cage maybe in the van?
No, we didn't. We were just gonna look at it and see. We were trying to get the cars first, and then we're gonna look at it and see what we can do.
Thanks for your patience making it all the way to the end of the meeting.
Oh, no problem.
We are now at council and attorney comments.
I got a comment
Thank you.
when everybody's,
I had a comment, it's a long one.
when everybody's done.
I have a comment. I'll start.
Mr. Novak,
I just want to ask everybody to keep Steve Winsky in their thoughts and prayers. He had a setback, and if everybody could please keep him in his thoughts and prayers, that's all I'm asking.
Mr. President?
yes, Mr. Yagowski.
So I understand where the auditor and that wanted to make changes and they found things after January, because this start in March and April, it started coming about. Change is hard, and the change is hard for everybody. So all these departments are coming to us about this, like, this is my money, why can't I transfer it? So this has been very difficult. Somehow we have to compromise the end of this year. If there's a shortfall, that we just have to reimburse this, because we have not gotten rid of them in 23 years that I have been in the office. So next year, January, I understand it's a fresh year, everybody understands the rules, but let's use some common sense at the end of this year, because I'm sure there's gonna be some shortfalls, and we're not gonna have a special meeting because we didn't ask for it. I think we should do our best, and you should send word out that we have that November meeting. Try to over budget a case, and when I mean over budget, like the taxes. We're not gonna know the number. I would strongly go a little higher. You're not gonna use the money for anything else but that, but put the word out. Let's use a little common sense, because this was a thrown at us mid-year basically approach. Not your fault, I'm not blaming you, but we gotta use a little common sense that we don't destroy the end of this year. Let's worry about January, then we'll start putting out the word. Us council people will help support you on that.
We have done that, and we've been very flexible with it as well.
Well, we're gonna need some flexibility in November, so that's our last meeting. Our last meeting, though.
Yeah, so there's
Please,
just.
please,
confirm-
it's our comment time, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were asking me.
I would have a comment if you'd welcome it, Councilman Yagowski, that might be helpful.
Then share it with him later, but right now I want to get through the councilman, please. Mr. Mullenhour, any comments? Mr. Karanka, any comments?
So on the agenda tonight, we see at least 3 items where we count out corrections, where we're just overspending out of different accounts, and we're just working our way through to try to get that resolved. You could also say that the postage was there. This is all a process, as painful as it is to try to get ourselves right, where we started out 4 years ago at being 27% surplus in 2019, and now we're forecasting being at somewhere around zero next year if we don't do something. So as painful as it is, and I know there's a lot of points that were made, mostly to my councilman to my right, far right, that
Council people?
directionally, not politically.
Depends how you look at it. From the seating assignment.
From the seating assignment, exactly. It's going to be painful. We're going to have to keep working through it to the best of our abilities in order to get this to where we're at double-digit surplus at some point in the future. So I appreciate all the lively discussion in order to try to get it done.
Mr. Keel?
No comments, thank you.
And Mr. Cunningham, any comments?
Yes, I do, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Number one, I would pass this on to Ms. Graves that we don't need 7 copies of these for every one of them. As we're going through our paperwork, we all have to sign one sheet. We don't need to get a copy of the signature sheet in our packets. That will save you a lot of time of putting it in the reading. Secondly, I have a problem with, and I've discussed this before, we have an agenda that was amended today at 9:30 this morning. Now, I've spent pretty much Friday, Saturday, Sunday working on the packet that I had received. And as you can see, I read a lot of notes on my agenda. And I walked in here today at 5:30 and I get this clean agenda and a bunch of stuff's rearranged. I would much rather get the old agenda and take things off. I can just put an X through them than to get a brand new agenda and have to try to transfer from here to there because things got changed in the order they were even presented. So I think we, as a council, should set a time limit as to when we would accept an amended agenda. So the president has to have some ability to say absolutely not, we're sticking with the agenda. If that requires a vote, then I think we should vote on that because it's unacceptable to me to get an agenda at 9:30 this morning and not receive it until 5:30 this afternoon. And sending it to email, sometimes I'm not at home where I can even print it. I would think 3 days is not unreasonable before we meet.
I'm going to share with you that a lot of the stuff happened very late on Friday and even after Friday. My comments on the email that was forwarded to the auditor's office this morning and making these changes was to make sure it was a reduction of things. It was not an increase of things.
That's my point.
With the exception of
That's my point. You see all these pages they got all this writing on. We went from 4 pages to 3.
But
it would have been very easy to come in here and put an X through.
Things were changing fluently over the weekend that I got some information as late as yesterday. So
it just caused you to delete items. You didn't add any.
no, I did not, other than just making sure that we had the right
My
employees.
argument is we don't need a new agenda if we're just deleting items on the night of the meeting.
Possibly, once the agenda is distributed to the council, then any changes, once it's distributed to the council, has to be made at, any changes to that, additions or deletions would be made at the meeting.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You see what I'm saying? That way.
We defer to the majority. You guys need to decide between yourselves how
I'd make a motion
how
that
you
we
want it.
set a 72-hour time limit.
Okay. Is that Friday at 5?
Yeah,
Friday at 5:30. Yeah,
When the
well,
packets
Friday
are-
at 4 then, I don't care.
When the packets are delivered.
Well, the packets are delivered before then typically, so we're talking, sometimes we're talking more than that.
I get mine Friday.
I will make sure that,
That's
I
what
will, I will make sure that it doesn't happen the day.
It was early this, well, it was early because of this.
Okay.
And I appreciate that we got our packets earlier because you guys were leaving. But then I spent all the time working on the agenda and then it comes in and changes at the meeting. So it's not your fault, I understand.
No, I don't take responsibility for that, but the agendas have to be put out 48 hours, not including the weekends.
I'm going to suggest that there's a motion on the floor, we have to accept the motion on the floor, so we can vote yea or nay. So the motion on the floor was 72 hours.
I would withdraw that motion since I heard you just say you would take responsibility for it in the future.
Yes.
Withdraw the motion.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Keel, you have a comment.
One other thing, I wanted to thank our doorman today, Mr. Parker, who was opening it up for people as they walked in. I'm wondering, is there a way that we can get like building maintenance to unlock the door?
Security, I think, I mentioned that when I came in, and to me, it doesn't make sense that we're disturbing the sheriff's department in there, hitting the buzzer, the people are trying to get in. They don't have fun.
It's not very intuitive. If this is your first time coming to a meeting and you show up here and the door's locked, you're gonna think there's no meeting.
And they're not real pleasant. When you push the button, sheriff's office is not real pleasant.
By the way, we got a button up here we push them.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Third.
We're adjourned.